Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for joining me once again with this Magic the Gathering opening. And we're just going to reprise a little bit of something that we had done before, which is, of course, my favorite type of booster box here, the little bit of Magic-Con. We had opened one of these previously, and now this is just going to be number 2. I did end up getting 2 of them because, honestly, I wanted to get a couple of the mystery boosters. Now, of course, we're also going to be getting some duplicates of the different things like our Secret Lair, as well as the promos, which I'm actually just going to keep off to the side for the time being there because we already know what's in these there, and to be fair, I'm just going to keep them off to the side because we've already reviewed over them there, because I really just want to get into the mystery booster box itself here. And because we've already kind of gone over what those each do, you know, we already have gone over them, as well as the pricing that they might do, and I'll have already placed those values of this already within it there. So ultimately, this is what's going to be the big game changer of things. So we're not gonna waste any time and go right on into them there. Now, the big thing is that we will maybe get some repeats there. I don't know how much of the commons, uncommons, or other things are within those mystery boosters there, but we're certainly going to find out because we barely had any repeats there on commons and uncommons. So this is going to be the real test to see how much extra that there is. And we're going to have here a little bit of Wakestone Gargoyle. Now, this is going back to that whole deal of, I think, in Foundations or something, that it was a rare. But as you can see here, it is uncommon there, 3 and a white, 3/4 Gargoyle, Defender flying, pay 1 and a white. Creatures you control with Defender can attack as though they didn't have Defender. Yep. Boonweaver Giant, 6 and a white for a 4/4 Giant Monk. When it ETBs, you may search a library hand and or library for an aura card and put it on the battlefield attached to Boonweaver Giant. Then if you search your library this way, you shuffle it. Web of Inertia, 2 and a blue for an enchantment with, at the beginning of each player's combat phase, that player may remove a card in his or her graveyard from the game. If the player doesn't, creatures he or she controls can't attack you this turn. Okay, so just another kind of like propaganda type effect, except this time here is removing cards from their graveyard. A little bit of Murmuring Mystic there. I remember that one used to see a little bit of play. 3 and a blue for a 1/5 human wizard with, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you create a 1/1 blue bird illusion creature token with flying. A little bit of extra cards there. That's never too bad there. Or by cards, I mean creatures. Skin Thinner, 1 and a black for a 2/1 zombie with Morph 3 and 2 black. When this is turned face up, destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. It's fine, but the morph cost is a whole lot for that effect. A little bit of Morbid Opportunist there. I think we'd seen this one as well. 2 and a black, 1/3 human rogue with, whenever 1 or more creatures die, you draw a card. It only triggers once a turn. Elemental Synthesizer, or not elemental, Experimental Synthesizer. 1 red for an artifact with, when it enters or leaves the battlefield, you exile the top card of your library, and until the end of turn, you may play it. And for 1 and a red, you may sacrifice this to create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. Activate only as a sorcery. Good old Kamigawa. A little bit of Zada, Hedron Grinder. Again, like a rare that was in the Battle for Zendikar block. One that I am interested in making a commander deck around, either with Zada herself as the commander, or as Feather with the commander, and Zada just being another card within there. So 3 and a red for a 3/3 Legendary Goblin Ally with, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets only Zada, copy that spell for each other creature you control that a spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. So, you play that card that gives her a little bit of a boost. Well, it's going to give everybody a boost. A little bit of Leatherback Baloth. just kind of like a good old classic big stompy creature. You know, big stats, no keywords, anything, just some mana cost that we see kind of pretty heavily there with, I think it was like the Earthshaker, Triceratops or Ceropod, something like that there, where it was like 6 or something for like a 12/8. Well, this is going back to when these used to be the big ones there. 3 mana, 3 green for a 4/5 beast. Yeah, not anymore. Super power crept there. Wicker Bow Elder, 3 and a green for a 4/4 Treefolk Shaman. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with a -1/-1 counter. And for a green, you can remove a -1/-1 counter on it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So this is definitely one you don't want to have that Vizier come along with, because you don't want to get rid of that -1/-1 until you actually want to use it. A little bit of Cavern Harpy, blue and a black for a 2/1 beast with flying. I wonder if the text has been eroded to include like bird now, because hey, you know, harpies probably look a little bit closer to birds than beasts. When Cavern Harpy comes into play, return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand, and you could pay 1 life to return Cavern Harpy to its owner's hand. So essentially, you know, being able to stack on ETB triggers, I'm assuming. And for our rares, we're going to start off with a little bit of Vindicate. 1, a white and a black for a sorcery with destroy target permanent. Now, this used to be, you know, one of the big removals there in white black kind of Orzhov type of deals, because it got rid of everything there. You know, gets rid of planeswalkers, creatures, artifact, enchantment, even land if you really want to. So not too shabby. Ooh, and we're gonna get a white bordered Karn the Great Creator, 4 mana for a 5 loyalty legendary Karn planeswalker with activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. And until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its mana value. And for -2, you may reveal an artifact card you own from outside the game, or choose a face-up artifact you own in exile. You put those cards into your hand. Now, I remember that the big thing with this one here is that you use a little bit of Mycosynth Lattice, I think that's what it's called there, to make everything into an artifact, and all of a sudden your opponent's lands can't tap because those are technically activated abilities. So I remember that being a combo there to kind of get rid of things, or just, you know, make your opponent's lands into artifacts so they can't do anything. Yep. And we're getting up a Rot Hulk. Good old mythic there. Probably from one of the like game night sets that were some of the peripheries, because I don't recognize this one at all. Rot Hulk, 5 and 2 black for a 5/5 zombie with menace, and when it enters, you return up to X target zombie cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of opponents you have. Okay, you know, it's pretty slow. I mean, you're able to get 3 free zombies theoretically back, which, I mean, could be any mana value there, but 7 mana is quite a bit for one of these guys, so not too sure how much I would run that, but, you know, I'd probably think about it at least. And we're also going to get a Girl and Her Dogs. 4 and a white for a 3/3 human with, when a girl and her dogs enters the battlefield on the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white legendary dog creature token and name it. Whenever a girl and her dogs attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each legendary creature you control. I bet Yoshimaru really, really wants to be around there. I'm wondering if this is a play on A Boy and His Dog. It was not a cartoon, just a TV show that I remember my parents speaking about growing up there. So, I don't know, there's a little bit of like a, not nostalgia there, but just a little bit of intrigue on where the name ended up coming from. Alrighty. One mythic down, and we've got a Karn. That's always nice. Custody Squire, 4 and a white for a 3/3 Spirit Cleric with flying. Will of the Council, when it enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes to your hand. Shepherd of the Flock, 1 and a white for a 3/1 human peasant. That's all, and it's got a 1 mana adventure cost for an instant with return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. Again, replaying a little bit of those ETB triggers. A little bit of Surgical Skull Bomb, 1 mana for an artifact with pay 1 to sacrifice Surgical Skull Bomb to draw a card, or you can pay 2 and a blue to sacrifice Surgical Skull Bomb to return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card, activate only as a sorcery. Again, get rid of something big your opponent has, or you can send something back to your own hand so that you can reactivate ETB triggers. Hada Spy Patrol. Now, this is the good old classic level up mechanic that was originally in Zendikar there. 1 and a blue for a human rogue, 1/1 that has level up, which is 2 and a blue, which you'll, when paying that as a sorcery, you can put a level counter on this, and at certain levels, it'll get certain abilities or upgrade its power. So at when you do it for the first time there, it becomes a 2/2 and it can't be blocked, and after you do it twice more, it becomes a 3/3 with Shroud that cannot be blocked. So, you know, if you want to swing in there a little bit there, that's one way to be able to do it. A little bit expensive, though, to be able to do it. Level up wasn't necessarily a great mechanic. Cabal Pit, a land with tap to add black to your mana pool, and it deals 1 damage to you. Or if you have Threshold, meaning you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can pay black to tap this and sack it to give target creature -2/-2 until a turn. Okay. A little bit of Wall of Blood here. I'm not sure how good this is going to be in Toughness Matters. 2 and a black for a 0/2 wall with walls can attack because it is defender, and pay 1 life for Wall of Blood gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So, you know, trying to be able to destroy something that swung into it there, but now there's a lot better for walls. Explosive Welcome, 7 and a red for a instant with it deals 5 damage to any target and 3 damage to any other target, and you get 3 red mana back. So it's pretty expensive. I wouldn't necessarily put it in unless there is a way to bring that 7 down to 0. So you're only playing it for the 1 red, because doing 5 damage to one target, 3 to another, and then getting 3 extra mana, kind of like a red version of Dark Ritual would be really nice, but it's way too expensive as it is. Breath of Daragaz, 1 and a red for a sorcery with Kicker 2. Breath of Daragaz deals 1 damage to each creature without flying and each player. If you paid the kicker cost, Breath of Daragaz deals 4 damage to each creature without flying and each player instead. Good old classic, lots of damage on that one there. Ancient Silverback, 4 and 2 green for a 6/5 ape with pay 1 to regenerate him, meaning if they would be destroyed this turn, it isn't, and instead you tap it and remove all damage from it and remove it from combat. Good old regenerate, that's pretty much gone nowadays. Far Wanderings, 2 and a green for a sorcery with search your library for a basic land card. Put that card into play tapped. Then you shuffle your library. If you have Threshold, instead you'll search your library for 3 basic lands and put them into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your graveyard. Pretty good, getting out a bunch of lands there for yourself. Ancient Lumberknot, 2 a black and a green for a 1/4 treefolk with each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Okay, another way to be able to activate up that effect in Toughness Matters. And we're also going to be getting a little bit of Hell's Caretaker, 3 and a black for a 1/1 horror with tap, sacrifice a creature, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only during your upkeep. Honestly, not that bad. It's 4 mana for a 1/1, so, you know, it's a little easy to get rid of, and it's not the most, it's not the cheapest type of card there, but for just tapping this and sacking a creature, you can get any creature back from your graveyard. That's not terrible. And we're also going to get a little bit of Unholy Heat. Now, I think that this one also had a little bit of play there as well because of its Delirium effect. 1 red for an instant with it deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. And if you have Delirium, meaning if you have 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, such as creature, artifact, enchantment, Planeswalker, and you can even go so far as some of the more niche ones like Kindred or Battle. Technically, all of those are different types, so you'd be able to get them there. So if you have Delirium, you instead deal 6 damage to that creature or Planeswalker instead. Now, dealing 2 for 1 is kind of normal there. It's your shock, but, for a little extra of having those cards in your graveyard, which, honestly, if you're in a little bit of a Spellslinger deck, you can, have some sort of land that taps and sacrifices it like a fetch land there. That's a land in there. And then you also play an instant or sorcery prior to this, so that's 3. All you need is just 1 more, whether that's a creature that died or, you get something else in there. It's kind of easy to be able to get it there, so dealing 6 for 2, outrageous. A little bit of Mind Twist, X and a black for a sorcerer with target player discards X cards at random. It's fine. It's not fantastic there. I mean, if you're up against one person and you sort of tap out and make it so that they don't have any cards in their hand, well, that can be a little bit backbreaking, but, because it's only target player, it's not every single opponent there, so unfortunately, it's probably not going to be something I end up using. And lastly, we're going to get a little bit of Cleaver Blow. 1 and a black for an instant with multi-cleave. You may pay an additional 1 any number of times as you cast a spell. For each time you do, choose a paired set of squared brackets and remove the words in between. Destroy target non-black creature with mana value 3 or less, an opponent controls. You and its controller each draw a card and lose 2 life. Create a tapped 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So for 2, you have a lot of restrictions there of you have to destroy a target non-black creature that's 3 mana or less that an opponent controls. And then afterwards, you and that creature's controller each draw a card and lose 2 life, and then you'll create a tapped 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Honestly, it's a lot of value on it there, even without the multi-cleave. So, you could try to find a way to get around that there. By paying 1 extra, you can target a black creature. For 1 extra, you can make it any value there. For 1 extra, you can take off the opponent controls, destroy your own creature, and then draw 2 cards. End up losing 4 life though, but hey, it's an interesting little idea of what to be able to do with a card. Alrighty, next up we got a little bit of Radiance Judgment. 2 and a white for an instant with destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. And it cycles itself away if you don't really need that there. Okay. Adamant Will, 1 and a white for an instant with target creature gets +2/+2 and indestructible until end of turn. Not too shabby there, though. For 1 and a green, I think it is, you get Heroic Intervention, which all of your creatures getting indestructible seems a little bit better. Acquisition Octopus there. I love these strange little things from Kamigawa, so I like that this is a little octopus there, though you can see Kaito is using up there to get the what's that? It's like the chip there. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 artifact creature equipment octopus. When it or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and you can reconfigure for 2, which means you can either use that 2 to attach it to a creature or unattach it. So it's fine. Again, back to that good old Zendikar there, Skywatcher Adept. 1 blue mana for a 1/1. For 3 extra mana, you get a level counter to make this a 2/2 with flying, and after you do that twice more, so another 6 mana, you get a 4/2 with flying. Now, as you can see, this is why that leveling up really wasn't a fantastic one, especially on these common and uncommon cards, because it's 1 mana for a 1/1, sure, but it's 4 mana for a flying 2/2, and at the end of the day, it's 10 mana for a flying 4/2. That's just not worth it. A little bit of Plague Spitter, 2 and a black for a 2/2 horror with at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. When it is put into the graveyard from play, it'll deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. Yep, sounds a little bit like a plague. It just keeps on whittling away more and more and more. A little bit of Fell Spectre, 3 and a black for a 1/1 Spectre with flying. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card, and when an opponent discards a card, that player will lose 2 life. Interesting. I might actually put this into my Angie Falconwrath deck as another little enabler there, because I have plenty of cards that make my opponents discard along with me there without them getting the benefits of it there, but making it so that whenever they discard a card, they're also losing life. Yeah, I certainly would care for that, so that's an interesting one to keep in mind. A little bit of Flame Javelin. You has a hybrid cost of 2 or a red 3 times, so it's got a converted mana cost of 6, but you can pay it for as low as 3, depending on how much red mana you use. It's an instant that will deal 4 damage to target creature or player. It's a lot of mana for 4, so not my first choice. Renegade Warlord, 4 and a red for a 3/3 soldier with first strike, and when it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Okay. Great Oak Guardian, 5 and a green for a 4/5 tree folk with flash and reach. When it enters the battlefield, creatures target player controls get +2/+2 until end of turn, and you untap them there. So it's a little combat trick that you can use to be able to make sure that your board comes back up if you had swung in with everything there. Or you can use it as a means of you swing in, and then when your opponent declares no blockers there, you can put this in, and essentially has a little bit like a Craterhoof Behemoth overrun type of effect there of just giving everything +2/+2. You know, a couple of different ways to play it. An Elven Bow, 1 green for an equipment artifact with when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 1/1 green Elf Warrior creature token, then attach Elven Bow to it, and the equipped creature gets +1/+2 and has reach, and it'll equip for 3. All in all, kind of an expensive card there. You know, 1 mana, one green to play it out, and then you either need 2 more to create a 1/1 that this will attach to that'll make it a 2/3 with reach, or, you know, ends up being 4 mana to give something 1/2 and reach. It's not enough abilities on it there for me. I'm gonna have to pass on it. Gonna get a little bit of Elfham Palace there, kind of similar to our that mountain that we got there. I think it was. It'll just enter the battlefield tapped, and it'll provide a green or a white. So no extra life, no surveil, nothing like that. It's kind of why these kind of went away afterwards there, because, I mean, even some of the common cards came in giving you a little bit of benefit there. And we're going to have here, a good old Pernicious Deed. I remember originally getting this one in Conspiracy, where it was reprinted, and it was a mythic in there. You know, now back in MTG 25th Anniversary Modern Masters set there, and went down to a rare there. So 1, a black and a green for an enchantment with pay X mana and sacrifice Pernicious Deed, and destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with converted mana cost X or less. So you really get to decide what will be destroyed. And I do really like the text there of Yawgmoth, you will now pay for your treachery. Yep, they're gonna die. Good old classic Bajuka Bog there in the white border. And it's just the good old classic. It enters battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile target player's graveyard. So big graveyard hate card for a particular person, and then afterwards it can tap for black. A good one there that will definitely be able to be put into some deck. Oh, and we're also getting the Snuff Out. Another one that really did not see a lot of reprints there, so getting it in here is nice as well. I do recognize this art from the one that I do have from the Garrick and Liliana dual deck there. So Snuff Out will be a 3 and a black for an instant with, if you control a swamp, you may instead pay 4 life rather than pay the spell's mana cost. So it's a free spell as long as you control a swamp and have 4 life. You'll destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. You know, it kind of paved the way a little bit for the Deadly Rollicks out there. Good card. I'll certainly take that. And we're also going to get a little bit of Fludge the Gunk Guardian. 3, a black and a green for a 5/5 legendary slug ooze. Whenever Fludge or another slug, ooze, fungus, or mutant enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent shuffles 3 Gunk cards into their library. Gunk is a colorless sorcery card with no mana cost that has cycling 4. This reminds me of... There's a few different card games that has something like that there. But, I mean, obviously Hearthstone is the one that comes to my mind first, with like a card that shuffles oozes into a player's deck that they can draw. Just when they draw, I think it deals a damage to them or something. But essentially, if players don't have ways of getting more cards, or if they're really needing cards there, you know, not only are you making it harder for them to get cards that they want by putting more cards into their deck, the card that they draw is just a pretty much useless card that says, you know, pay 4 mana to be able to draw your actual card. I mean, I think that this would be an amazing card to be able to use if they ever did. I think it'd be very toxic. I mean, it's, in its sense, they're kind of toxic with being the slug ooze, but it'd also be very difficult because you'd need to have a lot of those counters there. And if people were playing with sleeves, and it's like, well, then you need sleeves to be able to shuffle it in. It's a nightmare to be able to do. And I don't envy whoever would try to make this an actual card, though I think it would be an extremely good one there. So, or at least one that you would want to try to get rid of really quickly there if you were opposing it. We're going to get a little bit of Pegasus Guardian, 5 and a white for a 3/3 Pegasus with flying, and at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, you'll create a 1/1 white Pegasus creature token with flying, and it has an adventure of 1 and a white for an instant with exile, rescue the foal. As exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So a good old flicker effect there of either saving something from a targeted spell, or you will be able to get a little bit of ETB trigger. Not too shabby there. I mean, this is a little bit of a prohibitive cost there, but, you know, that's not too far off the mark of being able to do it. I mean, it's 1 extra mana. It's double of what you might expect, but honestly, it's not terrible. Crow and Phalanx, 3 and a white for a 3/3 human soldier with vigilance, and 2 and a red for creatures you control. Get +1/+0 until end of turn. Meh, not my type of card there, but if you've got a way of reducing that activated ability cost, or, you know, you've got a ton of mana, sure, you can pump it up really far. Just not how I'm going to be going about playing my cards there. Omen, 1 and a blue for a sorcery with look at the top 3 cards of your deck and return them in any order. You may choose to shuffle your deck, then you draw a card. You know, getting a little bit of semi-brainstorm there, except a lot more fair and balanced, I'd probably say, with it not only being a sorcery and not an instant, and it's twice the cost, and, you know, you don't get to put any cards from your hand on top. But being able to shuffle your deck if your next 3 cards are looking bad, I think is a pretty good upside for this there, of giving it that option. Echo Tracer, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 wizard with morph, 3 and a blue. When it is turned face up, return target creature to its owner's hand. Same thing as we said for the other ones, can disrupt your opponent, or you can do your own ETB triggers. Good old Order of Midnight there, one of the first cards with this adventure mechanic. 1 and a black for a 2/2 flyer that can't block. And it has a sorcery adventure of Alter Fate, 1 and a black, to return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Not too shabby, not too shabby. You know, taking something out of your graveyard is a little bit of that soul tie action there, so maybe it could find a home with something like that. A little bit of Dothy Trapper, 2 and a black for a 1/1 minion, though I do think that the Dothy now have their own creature type there, so it's probably I mean, I think minion is also still a creature type, so it might be a Dothy minion or something. You can tap this for a target creature to gain shadow until end of turn. Not too bad. I mean, that's I think that Dothy Voidwalker has shadow, so this would be a way to make sure that you could block it if someone did try to attack you. Or, you know, obviously because something with shadow can only block shadow and nothing else can, then hey, you know, it could swing in for free. A little bit of Young Red Dragon, 3 and a red for a 3/2 flyer that can't block. That sounds a little bit familiar. It's a dragon. And it also has an instant adventure for 1 and a red, Bathe in Gold. That will let you just create a treasure token, you know, be able to play something a little bit sooner with it. A little bit of Fire Blast, 4 and 2 red for an instant with you may sacrifice 2 mountains instead of paying this cost, and it'll deal 4 damage to target creature or player. Again, like back then, sure, you know, this might have been something huge there because it's free if you sacrifice 2 mountains, especially if you save it towards the end to throw it at face there. But, I mean, 6 mana deal 4 or sacrificing 2 of your lands deal 4, it's just not good nowadays there. At least I don't think so. It could be, but I don't think so. 3 and a green for Hunted Wampus, 6/6 beast with when it comes into play, each other player may put a creature from his or her hand into play under his or her control. I could definitely see this in a couple of different ways. I mean, obviously you can play it as a, you know, 6/6 for 4, but then everybody else gets like a big thing out or the best thing in their hands. The other way to do it is if you have a lot of good stuff there, you could put it in your graveyard with something like Beamtown Bullies and be able to reanimate it to someone else's side and then put out a huge thing that you have. Something along those lines there. Just an interesting way to look at it. A little bit of Treetop Village, a land that enters the battlefield tapped. It can tap for a green mana, and for 1 and a green, it can become a 3/3 green creature with trample until end of turn. I'm trying to remember if the text has been errata to become a 3/3 green ape now, but I'd have to look it up. And we're going to get a little bit of Frostmarsh, same old thing that we had there, but this time it's a snowland that'll come into play tapped, and you know you can add that blue or black to your mana pool. You know, it's a unique named snowland, so if you've got something that relies on being heavily dependent on snow, I mean, that's an extra card for you. And we're going to get old Iron Scale Hydra from, what is it, Theros, like, I want to say like Return by Death, but I know that that's not true there, but it's the one where Elspeth comes back, and if she hadn't, well, you know, Multiverse would be Phyrexianized. 3 and 2 green for a 5/5 Hydra with if a creature would deal combat damage to Iron Scale Hydra, prevent that damage and put a +1/+1 counter on it instead. So, you know, swinging in, keeping it on defensive, you know, they can't defeat it with combat damage. So, you know, it's a little bit of a wall for you. And, ooh, good old Spell Pierce. We'll definitely take that. 1 blue for an instant that counters target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. I'm pretty sure that, what is the Phyrexian mana one? It's 1 Phyrexian blue that, Mental Misstep. Yeah, Mental Misstep. That would be the only thing I think that will kind of beat this one out there for it, because paying 2 life rather than the blue is, and I think it only, it's unless you pay an extra 1, but I mean, when you're playing such low mana stuff there and you're playing it early, yep, that's a good way to get it there. A little bit of Goblin Charbelcher, 4 mana for an artifact with 3 and tap it to reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land. Goblin Charbelcher deals deals damage equal to the number of non-land cards revealed this way to any target. If the revealed land card was a mountain, it'll instead deal double that damage instead. Put the revealed cards on the bottom of the library in any order. You know, it's a way to go through to just give a little bit more damage. Unfortunately, don't get to keep the land, which would be nice there, of just being able to, like, you know, I'm going to go through my deck and be able to get a land to be able to play out there, so you get an extra land each turn if you pay the 3. So, but, I mean, it's an interesting way of doing it there. Huh? Snap Judgment, 4 and a red for an instant with the player who wins this game also wins the match, cycling 1. A player may concede the game at any time if the game ends while this spell is on the stack and never resolves. This reminds me of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And there was the Victory Dragon, which I think it might still be banned, which is if it deals combat damage to your opponent and they go to 0, instead of winning the game, you win the match. Like you get like 3 victories and it was like, oh yeah, you can't do that. That's kind of game breaking. So I imagine the same thing would be with Snap Judgment. It would never be able to come to fruition just because it kind of bends the rules so much. And I mean, if you did that right before you were about to win, then if there's no way for your opponent to counter that or get around it there, sure, you're having to put in 5 mana for it, but if you're able to do it, you win, all the games that you need. It's a little bit busted. Steadfast Unicorn, 1 white for a 1/2 unicorn with 3 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until the end of turn. Activate only during your turn. Okay, that's why it's common. Sunder the Gateway, 1 and a white for a sorcery with choose 1, destroy target non-token artifact or enchantment an opponent controls, and then you'll incubate 2. Or you can incubate 2 and then transform an incubator token you control. So you have the choice there of either destroying something and you get an incubator, or you can basically just make one of your incubators a creature and, make another potential creature come out there, which isn't all that bad there. And those are 2 good options, even on a common there. It's a sorcery, so, it's certain speed, but hey, it's not bad. Rescind, 1 and 2 blue for a instant with return target permanent to owner's hand, or cycling for 2. Decent little card to be able to do either mix-up, ETB triggers, or it goes away and replaces itself if you need something else. Arcane Laboratory, 2 and a blue for an enchantment with each player can't play more than 1 spell each turn. Okay, be able to limit them down so that no one can storm off or go too hard. I could see this doing really well in a big green stompy deck there. If you've got, put all your mana in to put 1 green creature out there, maybe. Who knows? A little bit of Twisted Abomination, 5 and a black for a 5/3 zombie mutant with 1 black to regenerate it, which we went over before, and Swamp Cycling 2. You can discard this from your hand for 2 to get yourself a swamp. Doesn't have to be a basic swamp, though, so you can get a Triome if you really want to. So that's an upside for it. Mischievous Poltergeist, 2 and a black for a 1/1 ghost with flying, and you can pay 1 life to regenerate it. Lots of regenerate this time around. Uh-oh, slivers. Uh-oh, Blade Sliver, 2 and a red for a 2/2 sliver with all slivers get +1/+0. Oh no, they're infecting. I have a feeling that we might see more of them as a villain, if you want to call it that there. I think it's just going to be a threat there, whereas, Phyrexia, Yawgmoth, Nicobolas, Urza, they're all villains there, and there's so many more, but, slivers are just kind of creatures. They're beasts. They don't have that sort of mindset of doing things for evil. Dwarven Recruiter, 2 and a red for a 2/2 dwarf with when Dwarven Recruiter comes into play, search your library for any number of dwarf cards and reveal those cards, shuffle your library, then put them on top of it in any order. You can get all 7 of your 7 dwarves with this and be able to flood them out there on your subsequent turns. Man, who would have thought that this would be the card that would enable everything there? Oh boy. Predator's Howl, 3 and a green for an instant with put a 2/2 green wolf creature token on the battlefield, and if a creature died this turn, you instead put 3 2/2 green wolf creature tokens on the battlefield instead. A little Terra Sunder there, 1 and a green with kicker, 1 and a black to exile target artifact or enchantment, and if the spell was kicked, you instead get to exile another. If this was kicked instead, you exile target non-land permanent instead. So, baseline of artifact and enchantment. Higher up, you get to do creature, planeswalker, yada, yada, yada. Little poison tip archer there, 2, a black and a green for a 2/3 elf archer with reach and death touch. And whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. You know, it's very straightforward with what it does there, and it protects you a little bit with the death touch if you want to. Ooh, a little bit of Quain Iterant Meddler. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary rabbit wizard, Huggy Boy, with tap to have each player may draw a card, and then each player who drew a card gets to gain 1 life. So hopefully there isn't a way for you to take advantage of it if someone else gains a life or draws a card there. Certainly not, right? Right. Oh, and a little bit of white bordered Ice Fang Coatl. Kind of nice on a little snow creature here. There. Green and a blue for a 1/1 snow snake with flash and flying, and when it ETBs, you draw a card, and it has death touch as long as you control at least 3 other snow permanents. Again, here's your snow permanents matter type of card there. Uh-oh, smokestacks. Now we're getting a little bit of stacks pieces, too. 4 mana for an artifact with, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a soot counter on smokestack. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player will sacrifice permanent for each soot counter on smokestack. So it'll keep on going until you sacrifice smokestack or until someone destroys it there. You know, pretty backbreaking stacks piece there that I'm sure a lot of people will want to try to get rid of. And we're also going to get a Flanking Lycid. 1 and a red for a Lycid creature with 1/1 that as red and a tap, Flanking Lycid loses this ability and becomes a creature enchantment that reads, enchanted creature gains flanking instead of a creature. Move Flanking Lycid onto target creature. You may pay red to end this effect. So kind of has a little bit of that reconfigure effect to it there. You know, it's just giving something flanking. You know, just kind of a old defunct mechanic that people just, you know, not people, just cards don't really use anymore there. So I can see why it's on a playtest card of seeing like, is there a way for us to bring this back somehow? Empty Shrine Kanushi, 1 white for a 1/1 human cleric with Empty Shrine Kanushi has protection from the colors of permanents you control. So, I mean, in a 5-color deck, you get protection from everything, but it's 1 mana, 1/1, so not sure how fantastic that would be. We're also going to get a little bit of Splendor Mare, 2 and a white for a 3/3 elk unicorn with lifelink, cycling for 1 and a white to be able to, you know, get other cards. And when you cycle it, you can put a lifelink counter on target creature you control. I think that this might be where they started put all of those like keyword tokens, not tokens, counters onto things there. Bergstrider, 4 and a blue for a 4/4 snow giant wizard. Not a giant wizard, but a giant wizard. When Bergstrider enters the battlefield, tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls. If a snow mana was spent to cast the spell, that permanent doesn't untap during its controller's next unstap. Kind of like a, you know, stunning it a little bit there. The only difference is stun counters work a little bit differently, where if something were to say like, oh, you know, you can untap a permanent there, then you just untap it there, and, you know, when it comes to your turn, it's already untapped. But with a stun counter on it there, when you say like untap this thing there, it will untap, remove the stun, it will instead remove the stun counter, and it'll remain tapped. So, you know, different ways that things work with that there. But little Kaldheim, still bringing that back there. A little bit of Boomerang. Now here's a good old classic there. 2 blue for an instant with return target permanent to owner's hand. Definitely could use more of those for some of the decks that I have. Definitely would like that. Oh, classic Diabolic Tutor. 2 and 2 black for sorcery with you search your library for a card, and then you put it in your hand and shuffle your library. You know, find the combo piece that you need to win the game. It just, you know, costs a whole lot more, and if you want to do that for less, well, that's going to cost you like money, not mana. Reckoner's Bargain, 1 and a black for an instant with as an additional cost to cast this spell. You'll either sacrifice a creature or an artifact, and you'll gain life equal to the sacrificed permanent's mana value, and then you'll draw 2 cards afterwards. And we're going to get a little bit of Punishing Fire again there. 2 damage to target creature or player, and if they gain life, you get to pay red and bring it back. So getting our first duplicate there at the very least. Rites of Initiation, 1 red for an instant with discard any more cards at random from your hand, and creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. I'll pass. Kappa Tech Wrecker, 1 and a green for a 1/3 Turtle Ninja. Now we know all about those Turtle Ninjas there. I wonder exactly what this one could be. You know, a little bit of Heroes in a Half Shell type of deal. It has just ninjutsu for 1 and a green. So if an attacking creature is unblocked, and this is in your hand, you can pay 1 and a green to instead put this onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, and return the return the unblocked creature to your hand there. And when this enters the battlefield with a death touch counter on it. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a death touch counter from it. And when you do, you can exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls. So you can play it down as a little bit of like a naturalized there if you want to, or you can keep the death touch counter on there if you swung in with the ninjutsu. And we're also going to be getting a little bit of Nissa's Judgment. 4 and a green for a sorcery with support 2. You'll put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 target creatures. Choose up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Each creature you control with +1/+1 counter on it will then deal damage equal to its power to that creature. So double fight, and 2 1/1s. Oops. And a little bit of Angel's Trumpet, a 3-mana artifact with attacking does not cause creatures to tap. So it basically gives your creatures vigilance. At the end of each player's turn, tapped all untapped creatures he or she controls that did not attack this turn. Angel's Trumpet then deals 1 damage to that player for each creature tapped this way. Okay, so it's not just your stuff, it's just attacking. So it gives everything vigilance. However, anything that didn't attack will be tapped and it will deal a damage to a player. So, I don't know, it could be a way to get around people trying to use some sort of like tap effects on other turns, or if they are, you know, more of like a spell slinger and they don't have a lot of creatures out, it's a way for you to tap them down if you want to be like Green Stompy, or if you have like a bunch of white weenies, you know, just a few different ways of playing it. We're also going to get Varchild, Betrayer of Keldor, 2 and a red for a 3/3 legendary human knight with, when this deals combat damage to a player, that player creates that many 1/1 red survivor creature tokens. Survivors your opponents control can't block, and they can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. When it leaves the battlefield, you'll gain control of all survivors. So, you know, you'll put them out there. Your opponents can attack other players with them if they really want to, and if they don't, and they stick around, when this goes away, you'll get to get all of them there, and you can use this little Angel's Trumpet to make sure that everyone else's stuff is tapped. You know, it's a choice. And we're also going to get a little bit of Cathar Commando. We saw a little bit of this one there in the Innistrad Remastered. 1 and white for a 3/1 human soldier with flash, and you can pay 1 to sack it to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. You know, nice little piece there. A little bit of Seeker of Skybreak, 1 and a green for a 2/1 elf with, use it to tap it to untap target creatures. So you can use it to untap your mana dork there, or something else that, you know, might need to be as a defender, or something that was tapped down and you want to attack with it. And there's a few different ways that you can use it. And there's also going to be an Immerstrom Battlefield, 1 and a red for an enchantment realm with hosted creatures get +2/+1/+0 and have haste. And host is going to be 1 and a red. Host target creature at this realm. A realm can host any number of creatures. So you just pay an additional 1 and a red to put creatures onto it there, and they get +2/+0 and haste. So basically what you want to do is you have this one out there, and whenever you play a creature that doesn't have haste, you'll play an extra 1 and a red for it there, and it'll gain +2/+0 and haste permanently there, and still until unlike end of turn there. But, you know, just another way of swarming out the board with your your little guys there, and they'll deal extra damage as well. So, I mean, there is an upside for it. A little bit of Banishing Light that we'd seen before there. 2 and a white for enchantment. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. Good old classic Oblivion Ring effect there. Tormented Angel, 3 and a white for a 1/5 angel with flying. I wonder what's tormenting her. I mean, she looks like she's in great shape there. She probably, squats a whole lot there with how massive her thighs are. Tetsuko Umezawa, Fugitive, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary human rogue with creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less cannot be blocked. I found it to be a pretty good card to have, especially if you're running a deck there that does have high-powered creatures, but they have, really tiny defense there. Just an option for you. A little bit of Flux Channeler, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard with whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you proliferate. Good old Spell Slingers getting a bunch of proliferate triggers off. Nice, nice. Deep Wood Legate, 3 and a black for a 1/1 shade with if an opponent controls a forest and you control a swamp, you may pay this without playing its mana cost there. And for 1 black, it can get +1/+1 until end of turn. Okay, I mean, I can understand that, they didn't want to make cards too good back then, but 4 mana for a 1/1 that potentially you can play for free, that gives itself like a little bit of, I think Fire Breathing is just +1/+0, but, to give it just a little bit of a pump there for 1 mana, I could see how they might think that was dangerous back then, but definitely not something to use now. Incremental Blight, 3 and 2 black for a sorcery with put a -1/-1 counter on 1 creature, 2 -1/-1s on another, and 3 -1/-1s on a 3rd creature there. Just get a lot of -1/-1 counters, if you will. A little bit of Blazing Crescendo again. 1 a red, instant, 1 target creature gets +3/+1 until end turn, and you exile top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card there. Again, something like Zada, you play this on, and every one of them that gets +3/+1. Not too shabby. Raminap Ruins will be a little desert from Amonkhet there. Well, tap for a colorless. You can pay 1 life to add a red to that mana pool instead, or you can pay 2 and 2 red to tap it and sack it to deal 2 damage to each opponent. A little bit of Deep Reconnaissance, 2 and a green for a sorcery with search your library for a basic land, put it into play, tapped, and then shuffle, and then for 4 and a green, you can replay this from your graveyard with its flashback cost. A little bit of Hunter's Mark, 3 and a green for an instant with this costs 3 less to cast. If it targets a blue permanent you don't control, it can't be countered, and target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. A fight effect that's quite a bit bigger, but, is very worthwhile if you're targeting something blue. A little bit of Chromatic Sphere, 1 mana for an artifact with 1 and tap to sacrifice it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool and draw a card. A little bit of mana fixing, but I don't know. It's just not worth it nowadays. Ooh, and gonna get one of the Cavs here. Cavalier of Flame, 2 and 3 red for a 6/5 Elemental Knight with 1 and a red for creatures you control, get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. Give everything haste and Fire Breathing for 1 and a red, not that bad. When it enters the battlefield, you can discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. A little bit of looting there. And when it dies, it deals X damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control, where X is the number of land cards in your graveyard. So it incentivizes you sacking land cards to be able to get some extra damage in there when it goes. So fetch lands, pretty good with it there. I think because it's 5, it's a little bit too slow for a red deck there, but we'll definitely take an extra one because I did have some M20. And we're also going to be getting a little bit of snow-covered forest with the white border. Absolutely, we'll take that. I love me some white-bordered snow forest. Snow wetlands at all. And we're also going to get a future site-bordered Scale Lord Reckoner, a 4/4 dragon with flying, with whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of spell or ability an opponent controls, instead destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. So they target one of your things, one of their things is getting blown up as well. So be very, very careful when trying to get rid of it. Duelist Convocation International, DCI, 2 and a blue for an enchantment with when this enters the battlefield, choose a 10-digit number at random and write it down. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a mana value with one or more uncrossed digits in the chosen numbers, cross out one of those digits and draw a card. Then if all 10 digits are crossed out, you win the game. So hopefully, you get a lot of low numbers there so that you'd be able to play it there. But again, playtest card, it's probably a weird way to win that would never actually become a real card. Yes, there are alternate win conditions, but I just don't believe that would be one that they would go for. Angelic Exaltation, 3 and a white for an enchantment with whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn where X is the number of creatures you control. Basically an enchantment that says give all of your creatures exalted there. I mean, Exaltation, exalted, makes sense. Inspiring Overseer, 2 and a white for a 2/1 Angel Cleric with flying. When it ETBs, you gain 1 life and you draw a card. This is one of the cards that I very much enjoyed from New Capenna there. I thought that its artwork was really nice, especially on the alternate art card of it there. So I have a bunch of them there, so it's kind of like a rehash on things. Military Intelligence, 1 and a blue for an enchantment with whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you draw a card there. Weird one for blue there. I mean, it seems a lot better for green. So if you're playing green-blue, this is, or white-blue and you're doing some white weenies there, hey, get a little extra cards if you want to. Disturbing Conversion, 1 and a blue for an enchantment aura with flash. You enchant creature, and when this enters the battlefield, each player will mill 2 cards. An enchanted creature will get -X/-0, where X is the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So, if they've lost a lot of cards there, it's not going to be doing any damage anytime soon. A little bit of Augur of Skulls, 1 and a black for a 1/1 skeleton wizard with 1 and a black to regenerate it. And you can sacrifice it to have target player discard 2 cards. You can only play this ability during your upkeep. And again, because regenerate only works with combat damage, if you choose to sacrifice this, you cannot use its regenerate ability. You can pay the cost and regenerate it, it just will still get sacrificed. So, don't mess that one up there. Oh, this one is done by Chippy. That's a name that my mother likes to call all of the chipmunks that are around her house. So interesting that find that name on there. Moan of the Unhallowed, 2 and 2 black for sorcery with create 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Lots of 2s in there. 2 mana, 2 black, 2 2/2s. And it has a flashback cost of 5 and 2 black there. Again, kind of slow, not worth it there for me. A little bit of Besmirch again, gaining control of target creature, gains haste, untap it, and then it's goaded. Goblin Wizardry, 3 and a red for an instant with create 2 1/1 red Goblin Wizards with prowess. Okay. It's a little bit slow there for 4 though, so I'm going to pass on it. 2 and a green for Phantom Tiger, a 1/0 Cat Spirit with, it'll enter the battlefield with 2 +1/+1s on it. And if damage would be dealt to this, instead prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 on it instead. So, I mean, you get something like Doubling Season or anything there that will give it additional +1/+1s when it enters there. I mean, it survives around a little bit longer there instead. Hedge Troll, 2 and a green for a 2/2 Troll Cleric with, it gets +1/+1 as long as you control a plains, and you can pay 1 white to regenerate it. So likely is going to be a 3/3 with regenerate, pretty much. Yeah, pretty basic. Temporal Spring, 1 a green and a blue for a sorcery with put target permanent on top of its owner's library. Not quite what you want to do with your own creatures because it's going to limit your draw. It's definitely going to be more of an opponent interrupt there, though you could do it with your stuff for ETB triggers. It's just you're giving up your draw, and I don't think that's necessarily going to be the best thing. Ooh, one of the big baddies there from original Eldraine. Questing Beast, 2 and 2 green for a 4/4 legendary beast with keywords Vigilance, Death Touch, and Haste, so it can attack as soon as it comes in. It cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. So, sorry, Fog, that you're not going to work there. And whenever this deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker they control as well. So, swinging in, trying to get over them so that it hits them and deals with their planeswalkers as well. I remember it being quite a good one there, as well as this one. This one used to be quite impactful as well. Abrupt Decay, a black and a green for an instant with it can't be counters, and it'll destroy target non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less. Now in Standard there, or any type of format where you're playing a lot of low mana value cards, yeah, playing 2 to be able to destroy pretty much anything that's not a land is pretty good. But nowadays it's just been power crept out, so I mean it's a little piece of history, I guess. Oh, Ball Lightning, another one of my favorite cards, and something that would go a little bit well with that descendant of Umezawa there, that makes things with power or toughness 1 can't be blocked. So Ball Lightning, 3 red for an elemental 6/1 with trample and haste, and it sacrifices itself at the end step there. So goes in and then leaves. I will have to see how things work with certain cards, like I want to read them again, of like Zurgo or Master Multiplied, where it says that you can't sacrifice, and I'm wondering if it's just tokens or if it's anything in general, because I'd probably put some of stuff like this into those ones there if they don't sacrifice at that point there. Just an interesting thought. Who's That Praetor? For 6 mana, you get a sorcery with choose 1 at random. Create a token that's a copy of the chosen card. Ellis Norn, Mother of Machines, Jin Cataxias, Progress Tyrant, Shieldred, the Apocalypse, Urabrask, Heretic Praetor, Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider, or Ebon Praetor, which I believe Ebon Praetor is the worst one that you could possibly get from those ones there, so hopefully you're going to get one of the other ones instead. But, 6 mana, getting a random one, it's a crapshoot, because, you have a lot of them cost less mana to be able to put them out, so paying 6 mana for one potentially feels a little bit bad if you're going to, pay extra mana for something. All right, a little bit of Journey into Nowhere, getting a little bit of that same Oblivion Ring action there, except it can only target creatures. And again, when it leaves the battlefield, that creature will return. A little bit of Prison Term, 1 and 2 white for an enchantment aura with enchant creature. Enchanted creature can attack, block, or activate its abilities. Whenever a creature comes into play under an opponent's control, you may transfer Prison Term to that creature. A little bit of Voyager Drake, 3 in blue for a 3/3 Drake with multi-kicker. So very much like Kicker, except you can pay it as many times as you want. So multi-kicker for blue and flying, and when it ETBs, up to X target creatures gain flying until end of turn, where X is the number of times that this was kicked. So, a way to get a whole bunch of guys in there for damage if you want to. Rewind, a good counterspell there that costs more. It's 2 and 2 blue for the instant to counterspell. And it's just afterwards you get to untap 4 lands. So if you have lands that tap for more than 1 mana, you can untap more than 4 mana worth of lands in the end there. Or if you have all of your lands tapped down and you have artifacts that are able to, artifacts or maybe even creatures that are able to tap for the colored mana as well, again, you can untap your lands if you want to there. Shade's Form, 1 and 2 black for an enchantment that enchants creature with, and the enchanted creature has black. This creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. You can use that as many times as you want, and when enchanted creature is put into the graveyard, you return that creature to play under your control instead, so keeps it around for a little bit longer there. Liliana's Spectre, 1 and 2 black for a 2/1 Spectre with flying, and when it ETBs, each opponent discards a card. Pretty simple there. Big score. As I've said, one of my favorite cards from New Capenna there. 3 and a red for an instant with, as an additional cost, you discard a card, and you end up getting to draw 2 cards and create 2 treasures. I very much like to use this in any of my copy decks because It's just an additional cost to cast the spell. If you've copied it there, it'll just get the effects. You don't need to pay the additional cost. So if you're able to copy this twice off of it there, you know, for 4 mana, and discarding a card, you end up getting 6 cards and 6 treasure tokens. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Always like those. Volatile Claws, 2 and a red for an instant with until end of turn. Creatures you control get +2/+0 and gain all creature types there. So everyone becomes a changeling. A little bit of Colony Garden there, a land that enters battlefield tapped, and you get a 0/1 green plant creature token when you do it. And when it starts to be able to untap, you get to play it like a forest, tap it for green. A little bit of Bloomhulk, 3 and a green for a 4/4 plant elemental with when it ETBs, you proliferate. You know, good old easy mechanic there. A little bit of Shimmer Drift Veil, a snow land that enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to choose a color, and when this taps, you get to tap it for only the chosen color there, so not too shabby on that one either for a little bit of mana fixing if you need it. And a little bit of Gaddock Teague. I remember this one being in that Ultimate Masters as one that would come around with the like extra box foil that you might get in it there. Green and a white for a 2/2 legendary Kithkin Advisor with non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be cast. So obviously you're making it so your opponents can't be playing big stuff there. And non-creature spells with X in their mana cost also can't be cast there. So, you know, even if they're, you know, CMC 3 or lower, but they have that X in it, can't do that one either. So it's a nice little piece to prevent people from interacting with you on your turns. A little bit of Sword of the Meek, 2 mana for an artifact equipment with equipped creature gets +1/+2, equips for 2, and whenever a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may return this from your graveyard to the battlefield and attach it to that creature there. So just a little bit of recursion on the sword there. And we're also going to get a little bit of Urza's Bauble. We got Mishra's Bauble before, now we're getting Urza's. 0 mana artifact with you tap it, you sack it, you look at a card at random in a target player's hand, and you may draw a card at the beginning of your next upkeep. Just get yourself a little bit of information, you know? No Regrets Egret, a 1 and a blue for a 2/2 Bird Scout with flying with anytime you could mulligan and No Regrets Egret is in your hand, you may reveal it. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library. So interesting there, you know, a little bit of trying to decide like, hey, you know, do you want to mulligan, or potentially are you going to be getting the cards that you actually need on the top and you actually are keeping a really great hand. It's an interesting one there, but, you know, one that kind of favors a more of like a non-casual play, which I don't play much non-casual play, so it's probably something that even if it got made, wouldn't be showing up near me. Valorous Stand, 1 and a white for an instant. Choose one. Either target creature gains indestructible, or you destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. Alrighty. Angel of Light, 4 and a white for a 3/3 angel, flying and vigilance. Good old classic base creature. Spiketail Drake, 3 and 2 blue for a 3/3 Drake with flying. You can sacrifice it to counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. You know, those are always neato on a stick there for a counter spell. You know, they have to make sure that they leave extra mana face up if they want to cast something big. Shoreline Ranger, 5 and a blue for a 3/4 Bird Soldier with flying and island cycling 2. Again, you can be able to get non-basic islands there, so those ones are always nice to use for that. 3 and 2 black for a 4/3 probably vampire with flying there. That's it, so very basic creature. Gold classic Hero's Downfall again, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Outmaneuver, X and a red for an instant with X target blocked creatures deal combat damage to defending player instead of to blocking creatures this turn. So, you know, if you've got your big stompy boys going in that don't have trample and your opponent's just like, yeah, I'll just block it with my 1/1s. Instead, they're getting that swung to their face. So I like this one here. I'm definitely going to be using that one. Oh, I definitely used this one already. Electrostatic Field, 1 and a red for a 0/4 wall with Defender that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. I mean, in a Spellslinger deck, you're just slinging out some extra damage there. That's nice. Pollen Bright Druid, 1 and a green, 1/1 Elf Druid with when it ETBs, you can either put a 1/1 on target creature or proliferate. Again, a lot of these ones from War of the Spark had that proliferate to be able to put up loyalty counters there, but all in all, probably not the best of creatures there. Tail Swipe, 1 green for an instant with choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If you cast it during your main phase, the creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and both of those creatures fight. One of them, hopefully one of them will die, Prismatic Lens, 2 mana for an artifact with tap it to get a colorless, or you can pay 1 and tap this to instead get a mana of any color. A little bit of mana fixing again there. And a little bit of Grim Hireling. Now, I think that this one might actually be a little worth a little something from that D&D commander set there. 3 and a black for a 3/2 Tiefling Rogue with whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create 2 treasure tokens. Yeah, that's pretty good. And you can pay black and sacrifice X treasures to have target creature get -6/-6 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. That seems like much more of a bonus effect there. It's just that first one there of deal combat damage, get some extra treasures. Sounds pretty good. Uh-oh. Now, here's a ban card from Commander there. Iona, Shield of Emeria. In white border, 6 and 3 white for a 7/7 Legendary Angel. Well, why is it so expensive? Well, let me tell you. As it enters the battlefield, you'll choose a color, and all of your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. You just say no to them. If they're a single monocolored deck, well, they can't cast any of their spells anymore. If they're 2-color, pick out the one that is the best for them there, or something that might have a lot of removal so you can protect this from it essentially there. And, at that point there, they can't cast their commander. So, I mean, it's a back-breaking card there. So, but always nifty to get another new piece there, even if I'm probably not going to be using it. And a little bit more graveyard hate here with a Grafdigger's Cage. 1 mana for an artifact with creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. I forgot that this was also from libraries there. So if someone has something where it's like, oh, you can look at the top of your library at any time, and you can cast that spell there, this prevents it there. It's a decently good 1 mana card. I'll certainly take it. Abbot of the Sacred Meeple, 1 and a white for a 2/2 human monk with Sign Cure. This creature can occupy a space 2 spaces higher on the monk track than its power. Once on each of your odd-numbered production phases, you may spend 2 additional sheep when constructing a building. If you do, you may activate the lesser production ability of any building or prestige 5 or lower you control. Exceptions, Apiary, Cobbler, but not Shoemaker, Wainwright. So this seems like they're trying to combine a little bit with something like Catan or something to be able to do things. So who knows? Definitely, unless they're playing some sort of crossover there, I doubt that it's ever going to be a card. All right. A little bit of crossbow infantry, 1 and a white for a 1/1 soldier. With you tap it, deals 1 damage to target attacking or block creature. Pretty simple. Consul's Lieutenant, 2 white for a 2/1 human soldier with first strike and renown 1. When it deals combat damage, if it isn't renowned, you get to put a +1/+1 on it and it becomes renowned. And if this attacks, if it's renowned, other attacking creatures you control also get +1/+1 until end of turn. That was when renown came around with Origins. Ideas Unbound, 2 blue for an arcane sorcery with draw 3 cards and you then discard 3 cards at the end of turn. Well, if you played all the cards in your hand there, you don't have to discard. It's that simple. Spined Megalodon, 5 and 2 blue for a 5/7 shark with hexproof, and when it attacks, you scry 1. Pretty simple. Mogus's Favor, 1 black for an enchantment aura. You'll enchant a creature. It gets +1, not +1, +2, -1. And it also has Escape, 2 and a black to exile 2 other cards from your graveyard, and you get to replay it. Underworld Hermit, 4 and 2 black for a 3/3 human peasant with when this enters the battlefield, you create a number of 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens equal to your devotion to black. Interesting. Lots of squirrels there. Fiery Impulse, 1 red for an instant with it deals 2 damage to target creature. And Spell Mastery, if you have 2 or more instant or sorceries in your graveyard, it instead deals 3 damage to that creature instead, so getting a little bit of Lightning Bolt action. Searing Blaze, 2 red for an instant with it deals 1 damage to target player and 1 damage to target creature they control. And Landfall, if you had a land enter your battlefield under your control this turn, instead it'll deal 3 damage to a player and 3 damage to their creature instead. Ram Through, 1 and a red for an instant with target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. If that damage is if the creature you control has trample, any excess damage is then dealt to the creature's controller. So get those tramplers out there with this one instead of any other fight cards there, so you're also dealing damage to your opponent as well. Basra Tower Archer, 2 green for a 2/1 human archer with hexproof and reach. Pretty simple card. A little bit of Planar Atlas, 2 mana for an artifact with when it enters the battlefield, it does so tapped, and when it ETBs, you may look at the top 4 cards of your library. If you do, reveal up to 1 land from among them, put that card on the top of your library and the rest on the bottom in a random order, and this will be able to tap for a colorless. Okay. Uh-oh. Now this is another good one to get there. Iroas, God of Victory. 2, a red and a white for a 7/4 legendary enchantment god with indestructible. As long as your devotion to red and white is less than 7, it isn't a creature. Devotion being how many mana pips you have. So if you got 5 red and 2 white, it's now a creature. Creatures you control have menace and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. Now, if you do recall, I said that I had a Nyx Fleece Ram at one point there that utterly overwhelmed my friend and scarred him for the rest of his life during a pre-release during Born of the Gods. Well, this was the card that I was up against. I had a Nyx Fleece Ram, and eventually he got an Iroas out there, but he was never really able to activate it because I just had ways to prevent him from getting all of his creatures out there, and he just never got quite 7. I think he did at one point there, but then I got rid of something that would have been able to keep this as a creature. So, you know, this is always just a funny card for me to see because it's like, who would win in a victory? Iroas, God of Victory, giant creature that has all of these effects, or 1 sheet that has 0 attack that lets you gain a life. It's just so funny. I'll put that one over there. Dead Ringers, 4 and a black for a sorcery with destroy 2 target non-black creatures unless either one is a color the other isn't. They can't be regenerated. So destroy 2 target non-black creatures unless either one is a color the other isn't. So they have to be the same color. Interesting. I think it's a little bit too restrictive, and it's a little bit too high mana cost for it there. So even though it's interesting, it's a little bit too restrictive and costs too much. So I'm going to pass on playing it there. Oh, and we're getting Doomsday. I can't remember. Did we just get this one too? Doomsday, 3 black mana for sorcery with search your library and graveyard for 5 cards. Exile the rest, put the chosen cards on top of your library in any order, and then you lose half your life rounded up. You know, end the game really, really quickly there for yourself. And Lich's Dual Mastery, 3 and 3 black for a legendary enchantment with hexproof. When it enters the battlefield, exile the top 5 cards of your library face down a shield. Okay, so now this is Dual Masters, which makes Dual Mastery understandable. If you would lose life, instead put 1 of your shields into your hand. If you can't, you sacrifice Lich's Dual Mastery, and when it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. This is another good one here that so it says when it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So I mean, like, someone could bounce this and just instantly get away, but I wonder how that would work with something like donation tactics there of trying to get something out there with like generous offering or something like that there. Conspicuous offering. The 2 and a red to gift. Oh, I think it's target creature there, maybe not target card. So probably wouldn't work, but I mean, I wonder how that would work. It just says leave the battlefield and not like leave your control. So I wonder how the ruling would work on that one there. I imagine it would just be if it leaves the battlefield under your control type of deal. All right. Sends Enlistment, 3 and a white for a sorcery with put 2 1/1 white Kithkin soldier creature tokens into play, and you may pay this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs there. Okay. Fairy Guide Mother, 1 white for a 1/1 flyer with sorcery adventure, 1 white, 1 and a white for a Gift of the Fae. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains flying until end turn. Cold Water Snapper, 5 and a blue for a 4/5 turtle with hexproof. Always liking the turtles there. Mystic Speculation, 1 blue for a sorcery with buyback 2. As you cast it, you can pay the extra 2, and you get to bring it back to your hand after it resolves, and you get to scry 3. So get to really determine what's on top of your library there. So I think that would be really good for any sort of miracle spells or Aminatu, something that makes it so that if you know what the top of your deck is and manipulating it, it's really good for you. So this is a nifty card there as well. Blessing of Leeches, 2 and a black for an enchant creature. You may play it anytime you would play an instant, so it has flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, and you can pay 0 to regenerate enchanted creature there. So losing a life to essentially keep something from dying from combat damage. Interesting, but probably not what I'm using there. Urborg, Repossession, 1 black for a sorcery with kicker 1 and a green. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. You gain 2 life. If it was kicked instead, then return another target creature, target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So first one has to be a creature. The next one can be basically any permanent there. So no instant, no sorcery, but most everything else though. Lunar Frenzy, X and a red for an instant with target creature you control gets +X/+O and gains first strike and trample until end turn. Here's another good one to have on Zada or Feather there, because given basically everything that you have, +3, +4, +5, first strike and trample there, you're going through a lot of stuff there. Killing a bunch of things, dealing a lot of damage. Spitting Earth, 1 and a red for a sorcery with it deals damage to any one creature. It deals to any one creature damage equal to the number of mountains you have in play. Okay, 2 mana to potentially deal a whole lot of stuff if you got a lot of mountains there. It's fine. It's just an old card there. So interesting to get. Frog Tongue, I really like the artwork on this as well. It looks very cartoony. So it's just, I don't know. It's very comical artwork. 1 green for Frog Tongue, you enchant target creature. When it comes into play, you draw a card, and it can block creatures with flying, so it basically just has reach. Seed Guide Ash, 4 and a green for a 4/4 Tree Fruit Druid. When Seed Guide Ash is put into a graveyard from play, you may search your library for up to 3 forest cards and put them in the battlefield tapped. If you do, shuffle your library. Again, it doesn't say basic forest, so you can be able to get the dual lands that you want to. It's really all up to you. Depends on what you got. Durgar Hedge Mage, 2 and a hybrid red or white for a 2/2 Dwarf Shaman. When it ETBs, if you control 2 or more mountains, you may destroy target artifact. And if it comes into play and you have 2 or more planes, you can destroy target enchantment. So essentially 3 mana for a 2/2 that destroys a good artifact and a good enchantment there. That's always nice to see there. Uh-oh. A little bit of balance there, a little bit more... yeah, that's a little bit more banned cards there. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember if balance is considered one of the... No, I don't think so. So balance, 1 and a white for a sorcery. Each player chooses a number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest and sacrifices the rest. Players discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way. So if you're really down on your luck and you're behind there, or if your opponents have really popped off there and they've drawn a bunch of cards, they've played a bunch of creatures, they played a bunch of lands, and you're kind of stuck behind and you're not really doing any of that ramping there, you can play this instead and get rid of a whole lot of their plans there. Not really legal in a whole lot of places there, so it's more of just a, hey, I have it type of card. Temporary Truce, 1 and a white for a sorcery with each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 a player draws this way, that player gains 2 life. So they get the choice there of drawing 2 cards or, a card and 2 life or 4 life there, probably going to be drawing the cards there because, yeah, that's 2 cards is a good bit. I definitely pay 4 life to draw 2 cards, so yeah. Uh-oh, Lotus Petal. I'll certainly take that one too. 0 mana for an artifact with you tap it to sack it and add 1 mana of any color. A good 0 mana spell. It's an artifact too. Artifact for 0 to be able to play and storm cost and whatnot there. There's a lot of uses for this. And speaking of 0 cost artifact, Mox Poison. 0 mana for an artifact with you tap it to add 1 mana of any color, but you get 2 poison counters, so you can only do this 4 times before you're dead, unless you got ways of getting rid of poison counters. But again, it's not a real card, so don't necessarily have to worry about it too much, but I do feel like it is something that could be played, though I imagine that there are ways of being able to move your own poison counters onto someone else, and then it's just like, yep, eventually you're going to die from poison, even though I didn't have any infect or toxic. Azoria's Herald, 2 and a white for a 2/1 spirit with that cannot block, or sorry, that can't be blocked. When it enters the battlefield, you'll gain 4 life, and you will sacrifice it unless blue is spent to cast it. All right, seems understandable. Unblockable creature. 3 and a white for Release the Dogs, a sorcery that lets you create 4 1/1 white dog creature tokens. They're not legendary, so unfortunately they're not going to help that girl and her dogs there, but lots of doggos. Narcolepsy, 1 and a blue for an enchantment aura where you'll enchant a creature, and at the beginning of their upkeep, if enchanted creature is untapped, you'll tap it. A little bit of Force Spike here. I mean, kind of similar to the what was that one that we had gotten here? Was it in here? Yeah, Spell Pierce there, but instead of being specific about non-creature spells there, it's anything there. It's just 1 blue, instant, counter it unless they pay 1 mana. It's always nice to be able to do that. Someone taps out with all their stuff. They don't got the extra mana. Well, too bad. 1 mana stops their big thing. Unseal the Necropolis, 2 and a black for an instant with each player mills 3 cards. Then you return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand there. So everybody mills, but you also get to mill, and you return 2 of your best things to your hand. It's a little bit slow, so it's fine. Tortured Existence, 1 black for enchantment with pay 1 black, choose and discard a creature card, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So another good one there to pretty much use with that Sultai deck there, because it's just for 1 black. You can, essentially just cycle creature cards in your hand and out of your hand there to get that leaving the graveyard triggers there. So an interesting one to be able to put into it there. Otherwise I'd probably say, it can help you get something in your graveyard that you want to keep there, but it might not be the best use. But in that Sultai one, it definitely is good. Rupture, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Sack a creature. It deals damage to It deals damage equal to that creature's power to each creature without flying in each player. Okay, sounds fine there. I mean, it's like a fling there, except, it's going to deal it to each player, so you got to be careful not to kill yourself. Orcish Lumberjack, 1 red for a 1/1 orc with tap it to sack a forest to add 3 mana in any combination of red and or green to your mana pool there. I could see this going well with like Lord Windgrace there, and anything that you might want to get a little bit of extra, because it's kind of similar to a Dark Ritual there in that you pay 1 mana, in this case sacking a forest, to get 3 mana in any combination of red or green. However, that forest can be tapped, so you can tap it initially there and then get it, so that you're really being up the full 3 mana instead of being only up 2. So it's an option. Trumpeting Herd, 2 and 2 green to create for a sorcery with create a 3/3 green elephant creature token and rebound. If you play it from your hand, you exile at the beginning of your next upkeep, you get to cast a copy of it for free. So 4 mana to eventually get 2 3/3s. It's fine. And we've also got Song of Freylis, 1 and a green for an enchantment saga, where when you play it and on the first upkeep afterwards, until your next turn, creatures you control gain tap to add 1 mana of any color. So it becomes a little bit of a mana dork there. And on the second upkeep and right before you exile it, not exile it, just sacrifice it, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance, trample, and indestructible until end of turn. So get a lot of extra mana to be able to play something there, and then everything gets big and gains a lot of keywords there to be able to swing in on that third turn. Okay, not too bad. All of the Skybridge Towers there, enters battlefield tapped, can tap for a white or blue, and for 2, a white and a blue, you can tap it to sack it and draw a card there. Good old New Capenna land there. Oh, and an Archivist of Ogma. I don't think I actually ever ended up getting one of these from my Battle for Baldur's Gate cards there. So, getting another one here is pretty nice. 1 and a white for a 2/2 Halfling Cleric with Flash, and whenever an opponent searches their library, you gain a life and draw a card. Just a little bit of bonus if anybody is trying to go digging in their library there. So I'll certainly take that. New card for me. Ancient Grudge, 1 and a red for an instant that destroys target artifact there. Decent, and also does a little bit of flashback for 1 and a green there. So, hey, for 3 mana total, you're destroying 2 artifacts there. Not too shabby. If you got something that involves using cards from the graveyard there, that's another bonus for it there. Oh, Mindbreak Trap. We'll certainly take that one as well. Oh, yeah. Mindbreak Trap, 2 and 2 blue for an instant trap. If an opponent casts 3 or more spells this turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay this card's spell instead, and you may exile any number of target spells. So, essentially, being able to get rid of them before they resolve, particularly any creatures there, it's an interesting one indeed to be able to play out there. Definitely will take it there because it's pretty usable if you really want to. Oh, Questing Cosplayer. I wonder what the card behind it could be. I wonder if it might be looking something a little familiar there. But no, it couldn't possibly be. They wouldn't actually put these on top of other cards there, right? Right. Questing Cosplayer, 1 and a green for a 1/1 human bard with when it ETBs, create a questing roll token and attach it to a target creature. If you control another roll on it, put that one into the graveyard, and enchanted creature has all of the abilities of Questing Beast, which is gnarly. So it ETBs for 2, and basically, as we see here, whatever you put that roll onto, it'll gain Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste, can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, combat damage can't be prevented. If it deals combat damage to opponent, it will also deal that much damage to a planeswalker they control. It's a nifty little one there to have. So, if they do end up making that one there, I think that it could be quite effective because paying only 2 mana to essentially get like an extra chump blocker there, but to be able to get that and put it onto a creature, that can hurt. Flicker Wisp, 1 and 2 white for a 3/1 elemental with some creepy artwork that I think would have traumatized me if I was a lot younger in playing this game. Flying, and when it ETBs, it essentially does an Oblivion Ring. It exiles a target permanent and return that. It's not Oblivion Ring. It just returned that card to the play under its owner's control at end of turn. So it's a good little flicker outlet. That's why it's called Flicker Wisp there. Oh, my bad. I thought it was one way, and then it was the other, and it's the way that I actually want it there with its flickering ability. Sir Alan the Lion's Claw, 3 and 2 white for a 4/4 legendary human knight with First Strike. With whenever Sir Alan the Lion's Claw attacks other creatures you control, get +1/+1 until end of turn. The good old white weenie guy there. However, Sir Conrad the Grim there is the one that is like the super good one there from the sets there of, anytime a creature goes to a graveyard, even if it wasn't from the battlefield, all of your opponents lose a life there. Yeah, and you can mill cards with him, I think. It's a good one there, to say the least. Probe, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. It has kicker with 1 and a black. You draw 3 cards and discard 2 from your hand. If you paid the kicker cost instead, target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. Okay, so you essentially get a couple of spells in one there. You get 3 cards for the 3 blue, and then you make someone discard 2 for 2. Maybe that's what you want to do. Could be decent. Amoeboid Changeling, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Shapeshifter Changeling. It's every creature type. Here we go, Mox Jasper action. You can tap this to have target creature gain all creature types until end of turn, or you can tap this to have target creature lose all creature types until end of turn. So, if they're running a Kindred thing, you can make one of their things super weak there if you want to. Like, if they're running slivers there and they've got all of their big guys there, you can nuke one of their slivers by making it not a sliver. It's just whatever its base power and toughness are to be able to get rid of it. And it'll lose any of their keywords that they might have given it there. Or you can make one of your things a sliver if you want to. Who knows? Shoreline Salvager, 3 and a black for a 3/3 Surikar. I don't think I've heard of a Surikar creature type before. Whenever Shoreline Salvager deals combat damage to a player, if you control an island, you may draw a card. I see where they're going for it. It's not good enough to see play. Vampire of the Dire Moon, 1 black for a 1/1 vampire with Death Touch and Lifelink there. A grounded version of Vampire Nighthawk there that lets you be able to just keep things at bay if you really want to. Smash the Dust, 1 and a red for a sorcery with choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target creature with Defender, or it deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. So you can get rid of a lot of those white weenies if you want to. You can destroy the artifact there. Probably not as common to be able to target a creature with Defender, so you're probably not choosing that option quite as much, but not too bad. Being able to choose between those two there is not the worst decision. Burning Palm, Efreet, 2 and 2 red for a 2/2 Ifrit. 1 and 2 red to have it deal 2 damage to target creature with flying, and that creature loses flying until end of turn. So you could essentially use that as a means of bringing them back down to the ground so that you can block them there. Who knows? Or you just want to try to get rid of them. Symbiotic Beast, 4 and 2 green for a 4/4 beast. When it is put into the graveyard from play, you get to put 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens into play. So it's not just a hairstyle. Invigorate, 2 and a green for an instant with if you control a forest, you may have an opponent gain 3 life instead of paying Invigorate's mana cost. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn, having them gain that 3 life to be able to destroy essentially a creature that's on their field. Like, it's not quite the best to be able to use this if you're swinging in and they're not blocking, because you're essentially going to have them gain 3 life and you're only going to be getting an extra 1-point swing. Maybe that's going to be the deal maker, but most of the time, probably not. So having them gain 3 life to be able to destroy something that they're blocking with, or, you're blocking something, not the worst thing ever. Slippery Boggle. This is one of my friend's favorites. Hybrid green and a blue for a 1/1 beast with Slippery Boggle can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Good old classic hexproof there. Can't wait for the return to Lorwyn. Oh, and a little bit of Tasha's Hideous Laughter. 1 and 2 blue for an sorcery with each opponent exile card from the top of their library until that player has exiled cards with totem mana value 20 or more. So that can be quite a lot, especially if they're hitting a bunch of lands there. So those are exiled too, so that can hurt. Oh, and a little bit of Mystic Sanctuary as well. I run this card in a few decks there, so being able to get some more, especially on a white border, is nice. It's an island, so this is something that you can search for if you're searching for an island. It'll enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other islands, and when it ETBs untapped, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library, so you get to draw it there. Now, because you're putting it on the top of your library, if you really want to, you can put a miracle card on top. Get that little miracle trigger. Oh, and here's another card that I think at one point there might have been banned in some places. Tinker, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you sack an artifact. Search your library for an artifact card and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. Well, You can sacrifice something small like that food token, or that treasure token, or that clue token. You can go through and be like, I'm going to get that cauldron complete, or this worm coil engine, or, heaven forbid, anything that will potentially kill them, like Blightsteel Colossus, or just a combo piece that you need to be able to win. It's not that good, right? Right. You complete me. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. 1 and 2 black for a sorcery with, if your life total is greater than 10, it becomes 10. For the rest of the game, your maximum life total is 10. You get an emblem with pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So I think that this is quite a good card there, because if you have way of gaining life almost in the equivalency of you using the mana, you can just essentially have infinite mana there. Because if you can gain 2 or more life based off of each mana that's spent for a card that you put out, then you can just play your whole deck. It could be a very, very powerful card there. Or if you have something like Platinum Angel, or that other one that was in Foundations that say that you can't lose the game, then, even if you have 0 life, you can't lose the game. And speaking of Exalted, here we are for Aven Squire. 1 and a white for a 1/1 bird soldier with flying and Exalted. If creature attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Kami of False Hope. 1 white for a 1/1 spirit with sacrifice to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Get a little white fog action. Sea Scryer. 1 and a blue for a 1/1 merfolk with tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. And 1 and tap this to add a blue to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. So essentially color fixes a little bit there for you if you want to. Battlewing Mystic. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 bird wizard with kicker red. Has flying, and if it enters the battlefield and it was kicked, discard your hand and you get to draw 2 cards. Okay, get to refill a couple up, especially if you don't have any cards. Soul Snuffers. 2 and 2 black for a 3/3 elemental shaman with, when it enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 on each creature. It includes itself there, but I could see that this being a good way to get a little bit of Massacre Girl action going off there, making everything else get a lot of -1/-1s there. This is a guy that we've seen quite a bit. Corpse Connoisseur. 4 and a black, 3/3 zombie wizard. Get to search your library for a creature, put in your graveyard. Shuffle your library. It's got unearthed cost of 3 and a black there. Now, we saw this here because we got quite a bit of them in the Secret Lair stuff, so not an unfamiliar face to us. Cinder Cloud. 3 and 2 red for an instant with destroy target creature. If a white creature is put in the graveyard this way, it deals damage to creature's controller an amount of damage equal to that creature's power. It's a lot of mana to destroy 1 creature, so I'm going to pass, even if with the potential upside. Purifying Dragon, one of the few dragons that we actually see in Innistrad there. I'm kind of surprised that we do see them there. 3 and 2 red for a 4/3 dragon with flying. When it attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature defending player controls. If that creature is a zombie, it instead deals 2 damage to it instead. So it can take care of those 2/2 black zombies that come in to play, Ancestral Mask. I think that this was an older card here that got a reprint at some point there that updated its artwork. 2 and a green for an enchantment that enchants creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment in play. So, yeah, be able to get that out in an Enchantress direct there, and that might be your thing that's swinging in to try to deal some damage. Streetwise Negotiator. 1 and a green for a 0/2 cat citizen with backup 1. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 on target creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following ability until end turn. This creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So a little bit of the toughness matters on it there. And until the end of the turn, it does get to have that toughness matters one as well. Patriarch's Seal, 3 mana for an artifact with tap to add 1 mana of any color, or you can pay 1 to tap to untap target legendary creature you control. Who knows? Maybe that legendary creature will do a whole lot of stuff there for you, so could be good. Bone Crusher Giant, I think that this one was pretty good at one point there as well when Eldraine came out. 2 and a red for a 4/3 giant with when this becomes the target of a spell, it deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. And you can play its instant adventure of 1 and a red stomp to deal 2 damage to any target that can't be prevented. So, hey, you know, at one point there in Standard, I know that this was a pretty impactful card. Here's a card that's been banned in a few places there. Yorion, Sky Nomad, 3 and a hybrid white and blue and another hybrid white and blue for a 4/5 legendary bird serpent with companion. A really broken ability that they introduced and probably will never really bring back there. Your starting deck contains at least 20 cards more than the minimum deck size. So, you know, our weak wrists won't be able to shuffle our decks very well. Flying, when this enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control. Return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step there. Again, another amazing card in the blue-white flicker deck to get the ETB triggers there. You know, it's just a really, really good one for that there. I'll definitely take that. And the Rack, 1 mana for an artifact with when it enters the battlefield, you'll choose an opponent. At the beginning of that player's upkeep, the Rack deals X damage to that player, where X is 3 minus the number of cards in their hand. So they must keep cards in their hand if they don't want to take damage, but likely most people are going to have more than 3 or more cards in their hand, so it's ultimately probably not going to deal all that much damage. And there's also going to be Tax Taker, 1 white for a 1/2 Rat Advisor with whenever an opponent pays a tax from a spell or permanent you control, create a number of treasure tokens equal to the amount of mana they paid. This happens each time a spell you control or an ability of a permanent you control causes an ability to pay extra mana. Cards that can tax opponents include Mana Tithe, Esper Sentinel, Ghostly Prison. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't card to go along with those there. It's like, oh, you're not going to pay the tax there? Well, I get to have my ability. And even if they do, it's just like, well, I get extra treasures. I think it'd be a card that a lot of people would hate to be playing, that would be played alongside a lot of those there. So I'm kind of glad that they don't, but I also don't have a lot of people in my play group that plays a lot of stuff like Rhystic Study and Esper Sentinel, so don't have to worry about it quite as much. Karametra's Blessing, 1 white for an instant with target creature gets +2/+2 until end turn. If it's an enchanted creature or an enchantment creature itself, it also gains hexproof and indestructible. So in your Enchantress deck there, if you're swinging in with that big, powerful green creature, that big, powerful creature that you have your Ancestral Mask on, you can protect it a little bit with this. Griffin Guide, 2 and a white for an enchantment aura. You enchant creature, and enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and flying. When it dies, you get a 2/2 white Griffin creature token with flying. Okay. Tezzeret Gamble, 3 and Phyrexian blue mana. Always love the Phyrexian mana on cards. It can either be paid with a blue mana or 2 life. You get to draw 2 cards and then proliferate. Yeah, it's pretty good there. I mean, you're not getting a creature out of it there, but you're getting 2 extra cards. I definitely like it. Thought Courier, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 human wizard with tap to draw a card and then discard a card from your hand. Yep, that's fine. Mind Stab, 5 and a black for a sorcery with target player discards 3 cards, and you can put on Suspend instead for 1 black for 4 cards there. If only it was like each opponent there, that would be pretty intense. Public Execution, 5 and a black for an instant with destroy target creature and opponent controls. Each other creature that player controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn there. Yeah, they're watching something grisly happen. I get it. Onslaught, like the set title? 1 red for an enchantment with whenever you successfully cast a creature spell, tap target creature. Interesting, in red, that sounds normally like a blue type of spell there, but who knows? I mean, I could see that being good there. You play your thing with haste, you tap down their thing that's their defender, and you get to swing on in. Not too shabby. Hoarding Dragon, 3 and 2 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying. When it ETBs, you may search a library for an artifact, exile it, and shuffle your library. And when this dies, you get to put that exiled card into its owner's hand. Overwhelming Encounter, good old dice rolling card. 3 and 2 green for a sorcery with creatures you control, gain vigilance and trample until end of the turn. And then you'll roll a d20. On a result of 1 to 9, all of your creatures get +2/+2. If you get a 10 to 19, instead you put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So something permanent rather than something just for the turn. And on your natty 20, you get to put 4 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So you get a much greater permanent effect there, doubling of what you might get for the other ones there. So again, that playtest card that allows you to flip a coin rather than roll a die there and getting the 1 or the 20 instead of those there. It's like, okay, and then do the crutch thumb to be able to get multiple chances. This is the reason why you would want to use that. Scale up 1 green for a sorcery with until end of turn. Target creature you control becomes a green worm with base power and toughness 6/4, or you can overload it for a 4 and 2 green, meaning that you take out each word that uses, you replace each word of target with each. So for the overload cost, each creature you control becomes a green worm with base power and toughness 6/4. So swinging in for a lot of damage there, at least hoping. Trigon Predator, 1 a green and a blue for a 2/3 beast flyer with whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. That's not too shabby there. Deal some combat damage, you get to destroy one thing that they control there. Yeah, I dig that. Ooh, here's a good old classic. Dragon Lair Spider, 2 red and 2 green for a 5/6 spider with reach. With whenever an opponent casts a spell, you get a 1/1 green insect creature token. Very simple there, and I know it used to be kind of like a scary card to see in red and green with just how much less interaction there used to be. And we're going to get a little bit of Fairy Macabre. 1 and 2 black for a 2/2 Fairy Rogue with flying. You can discard this card to instead exile out the 2 target cards from graveyards there. So a little bit of graveyard hate there, but probably not playing this too much on my side there. Greater Good, okay. Yep, this is a nice one there as well. 2 and 2 green for enchantment with sacrifice a creature, and you draw cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power, and then you discard 3 cards. So, you're going to want to discard something with a lot of power, so that's the only unfortunate thing on it there. But potentially to be able to get a lot of cards there, it's not too bad. Or, you could be doing a little bit of Sultai stuff where, you want to get the cards into the graveyard, so discarding 3 isn't that bad. But it is funny that they have a little bit of Mary Shelley on this one here, instead of having a quote from In-Universe. So that's an interesting piece. Ren and 1. So this is right when they first became a planeswalker there. So maybe it has a Ren type of planeswalker in the back there as a baseline. Ren and 1, a land planeswalker that has base loyalty of 1. So no mana cost, so you just play it as a land. For +1 loyalty, Ren and 1 gains tap, add a green mana until end of turn. So, makes it into a land. For a -1, you get to create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. So if you really wanted to, you could play this out for free and get a free 1/1 green squirrel. Or for a -4, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add green for each creature you control. So an interesting little one there that I think would be a little bit of a... I'm not sure how broken I would see it there. It's broken in the sense that you could get a free 1/1, but you're sacrificing your land slot to potentially do that. Who knows? Reconnaissance, I remember this one coming back in one of our Secret Lairs there. And I think that it's a pretty powerful card for any combat-focused deck there. 1 white for an enchantment with pay 0 mana, remove target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. It neither deals damage nor receives combat damage. It's a pretty good one for it there. I'll certainly take more of those. Master Splicer, 3 and a white for a 1/1 human artificer with when it ETBs, put a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token on the battlefield. All golem creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's a weird one there where a lot of these splicers put golems out and then they gave abilities to golems there, but never were really that good. So okay. Fate Stitcher, 3 and a blue for a 1/2 zombie wizard with tap it for you to tap or untap another target permanent. So you could untap your land, you could untap something that's going to give you a lot of mana or that is going to do something there. It's essentially letting you do it twice, and you can unearth it for blue, so not too shabby either. Seal of Removal, 1 blue for an enchantment with you can tap it to sack it to return target creature to its owner's hand. Again, basically either an interrupt on your opponent's game plan there for a turn, or you can do it to play one of your creatures again to get those ETB triggers. I say that a whole lot, but I really like that type of gameplay there. Priest of Gix, 2 and a black for a 2/1 human cleric minion with when it ETBs, you add 3 black to your mana pool, getting a little bit of that dark ritual action. Wicked Pact, 1 and 2 black for a sorcery with destroy target non-black destroy 2 target non-black creatures and you lose 5 life. You know, it depends on how much you feel that's worth it there. Getting a little bit of that nimble bird sticker again there. Just a 2/3 reacher guy that we've seen before, I think, in Foundations. Swelter, 3 and a red for a sorcery with dealing 2 damage to each of 2 target creatures. Okay, it's not great for its value, so I'm going to pass on it there. Thundering Spineback, 5 and 2 green for a 5/5 dinosaur with other dinosaurs you control get +1/+1. A little bit of Lord action there. And you can pay 5 and a green to create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. So, you know, being able to populate your own stuff there, not the worst thing there. It's just a lot of the abilities are costly. They cost a lot of mana. Balith Woodcrasher, 4 and 2 green for a 4/4 beast with landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +4/+4 and trample until end turn. They're really good there with the fetch lands there of putting the land in, attacking in, cracking it, and it becomes suddenly a 12/12 with trample attacking. Unfortunately, it does cost a lot of mana, so that's probably why it's not. It doesn't show up quite as much anymore. Oh, good old Quicksand there. Land that can tap for 1 colorless mana, or you can tap it to sack it for target attacking creature without flying to get -1/-2 until end turn. Yeah, just a nice little simple land there. Oh, an Oath from Nissa. For 1 green mana, we get an Oath from Nissa, not a pact for marriage there, but instead a legendary enchantment with when it ETBs, you'll look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land, creature, or planeswalker and put it in your hand, and the rest go on the bottom of your library in any order. And afterwards there, you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast planeswalker spells. All these oaths there to help kind of boost your planeswalkers and give a little bit of boost when they ETB. You know, in a Super Friends deck, certainly something to run. A little bit of Chain Lightning. Okay, 1 red for a sorcery with it deals 3 damage to any target. Then that player or that permanent's controller may pay 2 red, and if they do, they can copy the spell and choose new targets, so they can keep on running it down if they want to. And a little bit of demonic, not dynamic, but demonic consultation. This is another good one there as well. An instant with choose a card name. Exile the top 6 cards of your library, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card with the chosen name. Put that card into your hand and exile all other cards revealed this way. So, good way to really remove cards from your deck if you really wanted to, or to be able to find the combo piece that you need to win. There's a few different ways to use this. Either way, it's a very good card in Commander. And a little bit of Heart of the Duelist, you know, get that Heart of the Cards action. 1 and a blue for an enchantment with you may draw cards from anywhere in your library. You don't get to look at them, or reorder them while doing so. So basically, you get to be like, yeah, I want to draw from the bottom of my deck. If you put something on the bottom of your deck, you know exactly what you're going to draw. Or you could draw from the middle of your deck if you really wanted to there. But the most important thing that we see is it's the big main card that we see here. I mean, we've seen a few of these guys there. I don't think we've seen this one yet there, but we've certainly seen that one and Brigid and this like friend of the minions there. We've seen that Noble Ox. Haven't seen some of these guys there, but it's just like, seeing some of those there that were on the covers that are here. It's a nice little effect there. So we got the big main one there of the playtest cards. Alrighty, so we are down to our final 8 packs here. Hopefully we're going to get some more interesting things amongst them. A little bit of War Priest of Thune, 1 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric with when it ETBs, you may destroy target enchantment. Used to be in there to destroy the enchantments. Now it's kind of been pushed out. A little bit of Benevolent Bodyguard, 1 white for a 1/1 cleric that you can sacrifice it to have target creature you control gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn there. So, you protect one thing. It's a bodyguard, and makes sense. A little bit of Muddle the Mixture, 2 blue for an instant to counter target instant or sorcery spell there. And then it had Transmute for 1 and 2 blue to be able to discard it and search your library for a card with the same mana cost there. Same converted mana cost, so find something that's 2 mana. That might be your win condition, and this is just basically a tutor for it that's 3 mana. Moth Dust Changeling, 1 blue for a 1/1 Shapeshifter Changeling. It's every creature type, and you can tap an untapped creature you control to have this gain flying until end of turn. Vampiric Link, 1 black for an enchantment that enchants target creature. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. So you're little combo there of having something of whenever you gain life and spell deals that much damage, and it just you're dealing essentially double damage at that point there. A little bit of Heartless Act, poor little kitty. 1 and a black for an instant with choose 1, destroy target creature with no counters on it. Depending on which deck that might be. Or you can remove up to 3 counters from target creature. So, be able to remove their indestructible counter or lifelink or menace, any of that stuff, as well as +1/+1s. Or you can remove it from your own stuff if you want to try to get rid of like -1/-1 counters or anything that's harmful to them. Different things. Blood Knight again, 2 red for a 2/2 first striker, protection from white. We've seen this one before. Mog Conscripts, 1 red for a 2/2 goblin with it cannot attack unless you have successfully cast a creature spell this turn. Okay, that's how much that they scared these type of creatures there. You got to cast another creature to be able to attack with it. Blanchwood Prowler, 1 and a green for a 1/1 elemental with when it enters the battlefield, you'll mill 3 cards. You may put a land from among those cards milled into your hand, and if you don't, you put a +1/+1 counter on this guy there. So you're probably going to want to be milling that card there because you want the land. Okame Adversary, 3 and a green for a 2/3 elf warrior with this spell costs 2 less to cast if an opponent controls a green permanent. It has Death Touch, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. I honestly don't remember this card from Eldraine, but, there were plenty of cards there that, weren't the best, as with any set there, so that's probably why. But my goodness, this is one elf that I don't think many people like the looks of there, so I'm going to pass on that one there. We're also going to get Containment Construct, 2 mana for a 2/1 artifact construct with whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. Seems fine. And we're also going to get a little bit of Narset's Reversal. We'll certainly take that. 2 blue for an instant with you'll copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return the original card to its owner's hand, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So you can either do that to essentially copy your own spell so you can cast it on another turn, or you can stop your opponent from casting something big or game-winning there, and you essentially get to keep the copy there and return the other one there. Not too shabby. Oh, getting more snow-covered lands there. This time we're getting the snow-covered wastes. Awesome. I'll certainly take this. There, always loving our snow-covered lands. And we're getting a little bit of mana short as well. 2 and a blue for an instant with tap all lands target player controls, and that player loses all unspent mana. Okay, that, yikes. So you're essentially saying to target player, like, your turn's ending now. Like, you're not casting that spell type of deal. Teamer Elevator. Oh, with a little bit of, what's his name there? Surrak and Atarka and Goreclaw all in there at a time there. Land with Ascend. Get the City's Blessing if you have 10 or more permanents. You can tap it to add 1 green, blue, or red. And if you don't have the City's Blessing, you'll lose a life there. I mean, it doesn't come into play tapped, so, I mean, that's a tri-land that, you know, you can use first turn. Paying 1 life, not that bad. There are plenty of other lands that we do that for, and we gladly pay them for that, for only 2 colors there. So, and the potential of getting the City's Blessing, you don't have to do that in the future. Yeah. Rafine's Informant, 1 and a white for a 2/1 human wizard with when it ETBs, it connives, meaning you draw a card and then discard a card. If you discard a non-land, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Glimmer Point Stag, another one of our flicker cards there. 2 and 2 white for a 3/3 elk with vigilance. When it ETBs, exile another target permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step there. Not just creatures there, so, you know, you can hit anything that you might want to ETB, like that Oath of Nissa if you want to. Rise from the Tides, 5 and a blue, sorcery, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie, creature token for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard there. Yep, kind of something that we've seen before, I'm pretty sure. Witching Well, 1 blue for an artifact with when it ETBs, you'll scry 2, and you can pay 3 and a blue to sack it to draw 2 cards there. Really basic Throne of Eldraine card. Steel Strength, 1 and a black for an instant with target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and another one gets -1/-1 until end of turn there. Makes sense. Scourge Familiar, 4 and a black for a 3/2 imp with flying, and choose and discard a card to add 1 black mana to your mana pool. You can play that as a mana source there. So, you know, cards in your hand become mana. That's could be fine there. Rabbit Battery, we've seen this one there before, the 1/1 enchantment rabbit thing. Either it has haste, or if you attach it for something for red, it gets +1/+1 in haste. Unchained Berserker, 1 and a red for a 1/1 human berserker with protection from white, and it gets +2/+0 as long as it's attacking. Alrighty. Jaspera Sentinel, 1 green for a 1/2 elf rogue with reach. You can tap it and tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of innate color. It's, you know, it's not that fantastic there because it's not quite a mana dork. Llanowar Visionary, 2 and a green for a 2/2 elf druid with when it ETBs, you draw a card and you can tap it for green as a mana dork. And we also got a Heartstone, 3 mana for an artifact with activated abilities of creatures, costs 1 less to activate. This ability can't reduce the amount of mana and ability cost to activate to less than 1. So, you know, very, very good in an Agatha deck or anything else that you need to be able to reduce the activated abilities that use mana. So, not too shabby. Definitely will hold on to one of those there. And we're also going to get Part the Water Veil. Kind of one of the worst extra turn spells we've got there. 4 and 2 blue for a sorcery with take an extra turn after this one, and then you exile it, and you can awaken 6 for 6 colorless and 3 blue. You can instead cast this for that 9 value cost to additionally put 6 +1/+1 counters on a land you control, and it becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land, but the problem is it's a lot easier to remove a creature than it is a land. So you're essentially saying, like, here's a 6/6 creature, but you're probably going to kill it. And there goes my land. And, oh boy, we're getting another good one here. Displacer Kitten. Oh boy, yeah. more flashing, not flashing, more flickering there. 3 and a blue for a 2/2 Cat Beast with Avoidance. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to one target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So getting that instant flicker effect there, always fantastic. You love to see that. Good card. Oh, and a Relic of Progenitus. That's another good one as well. 1 white for an artifact with you tap it to target player exiles a card from their graveyard there. They get to choose, which is fine there. Later on, or you can play 1 other mana, and you can exile the Relic of Progenitus to exile all graveyards, like, hitting everybody with the Bujuka Bog, except instead of playing a land, you just got to play 1 extra card and 1 extra mana, and then you get to draw a card to replace it. Again, it's a pretty good one there. And we're also going to get a Creepy Crawl, a 3 and a black for a 2/4 creature spider with Menace and Reach. Whenever Creepy Crawler deals combat damage to a player who is afraid of you, that player discards a card and you draw a card. An opponent is afraid of you if a horror, nightmare, enchantment, or face-down creature you control entered the battlefield or attacked them this turn. Interesting. Just another one of those things where it's like you've got outlaws and committing crimes and whatnot there, things that you definitely need reminder text on to make sure that you're doing things the right way. Alrighty. 5 left. And you get Diversionary Tactics, 3 and a white for an enchantment with tap 2 untapped creatures you control to tap a target creature there. It's meh. Rambunctious Mutt, 3 and 2 white for a 3/4 doggo with when it ETBs, you'll destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. So it's really just destroying the slippers there. Startle, 1 and a blue for an instant with target creature gets -2/-0 until end of turn. And you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed, and you draw a card. So, yeah, you just get a little bit of value there. Symbol of Unsummoning, 2 and a blue for a sorcery with return any 1 creature to its owner's hand, and then you draw a card there. So, a little bit of disruption there, and you get to draw a card to replace this one there. Again, interruption, replaying for ETB triggers, you get to choose. Liliana's Devotee, 2 and a black for a 2/3 human warlock with zombies you control get +1/+0. And at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, you may pay 1 and a black. If you do, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So, it's a fine one there. Ooh, this is a good old Edict there. Shieldred's Edict, 1 and a black for an instant. And you get to choose 1. Each opponent sacks a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token, or each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. Now, this is not each player, so you're avoided on it there. For 2 mana, you're essentially getting rid of, 1 to 3 planeswalkers, 1 to 3 non-token creatures, or 1 to 3 creature tokens. So if they've got 1 massive creature token that you want to get rid of, like if they've got a Merit Lage and you want that out of there, you can pay 2 mana to get rid of it there. If they've got their commander out and they're a Voltron commander and it's hard to hit them there, pay 2 mana and they got to sacrifice it there. It's a very, very good card. And we get a little bit of Rimrock Knight there again. 1 and a red for that Dwarf Knight there. Can't block and can give something +2/+0 until end of turn there. Yep. Get another little evoker there. Spite Bellows, 5 and a red for a 6/1 elemental. So if you're able to keep it out there with that Umezawa guy there, you're able to swing in for the 6 unblockable. But the big thing is when it leaves play, it deals 6 damage to a target creature there. You can evoke it for 1 and 2 red. So in this case here, instead of the ETB triggers, this one is a dying trigger. So when it dies from that evoke cost there, well, it's dealing that 6 damage. We're also going to get a Crawl Harpooner, 1 and a green for a 3/2 Insect Warrior with Reach. And as Undergrowth, when it ETBs, you choose up to 1 target creature with flying you don't control. And this will get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Then you may have this fight that creature. So a little bit of getting rid of that flying creatures there. They're getting rid of flying creatures there and making it a little tough for when it ETBs. Also going to get some Crashing Boars there. 3 and 2 green for a 4/4 boar. When it attacks, defending player chooses an untapped creature he or she controls. That creature blocks crashing turns this turn if able. Interesting. So they're forced to block this if they have untapped creatures. Okay, but they get to choose which one has to. All right. Ancient Excavation, 2, a blue and a black for an instant. Withdraw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand, then discard a card for each card drawn this way. So essentially replace your hand, but you get to keep all of the best stuff. So again, not too shabby. And basic land cycling 2, you can pay 2 to discard this and get a basic land. We like the other ones where we get to get the non-basic lands though. Bishop of Wings, 2 white for a 1/4 human cleric with whenever an angel enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. And whenever an angel you control dies, you get to put a 1/1 white spirit token with flying on the battlefield. So you get to keep a little bit there. So even if it's an angel token there, you still get the 1/1. And we're getting a little bit of Faithless Looting with a little bit of Dak Faden. Dead guy. 6 feet under, you know? 1 red mana for a sorcery, withdraw 2, and then you discard 2, and you can flash pit back for 2 and a red. Not too bad. Certainly will take it, certainly playable. And a little bit of Ruination as well. 3 and a red for a sorcery with destroy all non-basic lands. So, you know, it's a good one there to be like, yeah, you know, I'm not being greedy. I don't have a lot of non-basic lands. Or, you know, you don't play them until after you play this. I do find it funny how they look very similar to the Mind Break Trap heads there as well. Maybe they're similar. Who knows? And a Blurry Visionary, 3 and a blue for a 3/2 human wizard with when this ETBs, look at the top 2 cards of your library and put them back to back in the same sleeve with either card in front. They become a modal double face card for the rest of the game. Then put that card into your hand. That's interesting there. So you get to choose whichever side that you play it on there. So you basically get to draw 2 at that point, but then you have to decide which of them that you end up playing. All right. Would have Wanderer's Strike, 4 and a white for a sorcery with exile target creature, and then you proliferate. Again, seeing that a lot of that proliferate. Good old classic Raise the Alarms, 1 and a white for an instant. Put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens on the battlefield. Yep. Serpentine Curve, 3 and a blue for a sorcery with create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. One of my favorite creature tokens. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is 1 plus the total number of instants and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. Okay. Psychic Corrosion, 2 and a blue for an enchantment with whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into the graveyard there. Another way to kind of like help mill people out and get stuff put away there, especially if you're drawing a lot of cards there, like with wheels and whatnot. Footsteps of the Gorio, 2 and a black for a sorcery arcane with return target creature from your graveyard to play. Sacrifice it at the end of turn there. You know, maybe you just need to get it for that ETB, or, you know, maybe it does something when it dies. Either way, you're probably getting something out of it there. Disturbed Burial, 1 and a black for a sorcery with buyback of 3. To return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. You know, be able to do that multiple times, bring back your things that you really need. Torch Breath, we saw this one there. X and a red, costs 2 less to target a blue permanent. Can't be countered, deals X damage to creature or planeswalker there. Goblin Taskmaster, 1 red for a 1/1 goblin with 1 and a red for target goblin gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and it has a morph cost of 1 red there. A little bit too slow for my liking there. I'll definitely pass on it. Wirewood Guardian, 5 and 2 green for a 6/6 elf mutant. That just has some forest cycling, so you're able to get that big old forest that you want there into your hand. A little bit of Bookworm, 7 and a green for a 7/7 worm with trample. When it ETBs, you gain 3 and draw a card. And you can pay 2 and a red to put Bookworm from your graveyard into your library, 3rd from the top. So you're able to put it in there, though, you know, drawing a card and getting 3 life is probably not the most that you want to do to get for 8 mana there. A little bit of Dimir Infiltrator, blue and a black for a 1/3 spirit that just can't be blocked, or you can transmute it there for 1 a blue and a black, get something good for 2 mana, kind of like we saw with the other Dimir cards there. It's fine. And a little bit of Peer into the Abyss, 4 and 3 black for a sorcery with target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life, round up each time. So most likely you're going to be using this on yourself unless you can kill someone. Well, you can't even kill someone with this there because it's going to just deal half their life to them. So being able to draw half your deck for half your life is a pretty good deal. So especially if, something in Commander, especially if you're in Commander and you're drawing 30, 40 cards there for, 20, 15, 10 life, it's a pretty good deal. So definitely will take that and use it on myself. And here's the Mutilate. Absolutely will take more of those. 2 and 2 black for a sorcery with all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. Gets around Hexproof, gets around Ward, gets around Indestructible there. It's so good. It's good mass removal there. Definitely will take that. Oh, and we're going to get the good old classic black spell. We got Shivan Dragon before. I think that we got the Sarah Angel. Now we're getting the black one there. Sengir Vampire. 4/4 for 3 and 2 black for a 4/4 vampire with flying, and whenever a creature dealt damage by the Sengir Vampire this turn dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. One of the original best creatures to get out there. So good to have a little bit of new artwork. And, getting this theoretical there of Kozilek completed. 8 and 2 colorless Phyrexian mana for a 12/12 legendary Planeswalker Eldrazi. And colorless Phyrexian mana can either be paid for with 2 colorless or for 2 life each. When you cast this spell, each opponent gets 2 poison counters. Then each opponent with more than 2 cards in hand discards cards equal to that difference. And this has Annihilating Infect. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices a permanent for each poison counter that they have. So, it's only the defending player though. So, but it's that good old what if scenario there of what if an Eldrazi Titan could be corrupted by Phyrexian oil. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that it's possible, but this is a good what if scenario, and I think it's just a nifty little card there that I think is not too busted there. I mean, of course, if someone has a lot of poison counters on them, it's a lot more impactful, but we just don't see quite as many of those there unless someone's just trying to win with Triumph from the Hordes. And we're going to get Hand of Honor, 2 white for a 2/2 Human Samurai protection from black, and a little bit of Bushido 1 there. Good old classic Samurai. Armored Ascension, 3 and a white for a enchantment creature aura with enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each planes you control and has flying. Okay. That's not too bad there. I mean, it seems very similar to Blanchwood Armor for us, so certainly take that and potentially be something good. Could put that in. Oh, Peregrine Drake. There's another interesting one there as well. And it's 4 and a blue for a 2/3 Drake with flying. That when it comes into play, you untap up to 5 lands. Again, if you have lands that tap down for more than 1 mana, then you can untap all of them and some additional ones there. So it's an interesting one, to say the least. And Tolarian Terror, that good old one that we talked about, Good and Popper there. Again, I still don't know if it's banned there or not, since I don't really do much with Popper. Essence Extraction, 1 and 2 black for an instant with deal 3 damage to target creature, and you gain 3 life. It's fine. A little bit of Throat Slitter action. I'll have to see. I think that there were a couple of ninja cards that I was missing that I wanted to put into a deck there. This might be one of them. 4 and a black for a 2/2 Rat Ninja with Ninjutsu, 2 and a black. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target non-black creature that player controls. Yeah, that's a pretty good one there. So if I don't have that in there, I definitely will need to. Rapacious Dragon, we saw this one there. ETBs with 2 treasure tokens. That's fine. Mog Maniac, 1 and a red for a 1/1 Goblin with when it is dealt damage, it deals an equal amount of damage to target opponent there. Oh, that's an interesting one there. you should be able to get that one out and then do a little bit of Blasphemous Act. It deals 13 damage to it, and then it's just like, yeah, you also get to take 13 damage. So I could see this one being used in some place there. So I'm interested in that. Gaia's Gift, 1 and a green for an instant with put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains reach, trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. So giving one creature a lot of extra stuff there. A little bit of Sky Snare Spider, taking down a big old griffin there. 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 spider with vigilance and reach. That's it. You know, it is what it is. A little bit of Grizzly Salvage, black and a green for an instant with reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or land from among them into your hand, and the rest go into your graveyard. Now, getting a little bit of extra stuff into your graveyard for any of your Golgari or Sultai actions there. And we're also going to get a little bit of Ancestor Dragon from the Chinese Planeswalker sets there. It's got a little something down there. Take care of that. 4 and 2 white for a 5/6 dragon with flying, and whenever one or more creatures you control attack, you gain 1 life for each attacking creature. Yep, it seems like a pre-con deck there. It's a big creature that doesn't have that great of an ability. And we're also going to get a little bit of Ash Barrens with that white bordering there. Tapping it up for a little bit of colorless and basically uncycling for 1 there. So be able to, mana fix for whatever land that you need there. Oh, we got a natural order before, but now we're going to get a foil natural order there. So again, it's 2 and 2 green for a sorcery with additional cost to cast it. You sack a green creature and you search for a green creature and put it on the battlefield and shuffle. So surprisingly, we haven't gotten any foils yet there. So getting a foil mythic of this one seems pretty nice there. Hopefully we'll get another one there. And a little bit of a Starting Town NPC, 2 and a green for a 3/3 human peasant with each creature card in your hand has a 1 and a green adventure sorcery named Fetch Herbs with you gain 2 life, and each creature card you cast from exile enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Now, that could be any creature that you put in there, so if there is ways for you to impulse draw and you put things into exile and can play from there, or if you've somehow taken card from your opponent's face down or any which way and you're able to play them there from exile, they still come in with that +1/+1 on it. So yeah, hey, not too shabby. I could definitely see that one being a genuine card there. Obviously, it's going to be called something different. All right, second to last pack. Hopefully we're going to get a little bit of luck on this one there. Gold Knight Commander, 3 and a white for a human cleric soldier, 2/2 with whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Big white weenie card. Get a lot of them out there, and you're going to be having a lot of your creatures there getting pumped up with it. Angelic Page, 1 and a white for a 1/1 spirit with flying, and you can tap it to have target attacking or blocking creature get +1/+1 until end of turn. It's pretty basic. A little bit of Moon Circuit Hacker, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 enchantment human wizard with ninjutsu 1 blue. Whenever Moon Circuit Hacker deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card unless this entered the battlefield this turn. So unless it was ninjutsu'd in, then you got to discard a card. Okay. Manipulate Fate, 1 and a blue. Search your library for 3 cards, remove them from the game, then shuffle your library and draw a card. Okay, get rid of things that you don't need, but if you don't need them, don't put them in your deck already. So I'm going to pass on that. Corpse Augur, 3 and a black for a 4/2 zombie wizard with when it dies, you draw X card and lose X life, where X is the number of creature cards in target player's graveyard. So you can be drawing a whole lot of cards if you really want to. Bad Deal, 4 and 2 black for a sorcery with you draw 2 cards and each opponent discards 2 cards. Each opponent loses 2 life. Now, I wish that this cost less because then I'd actually play it. But for 6, it's too much for what it does. Goblin and Skater, we had that one before. When it ETBs, you get a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Yep. Sparksmith, 1 and a red for a 1/1 goblin with it deals X damage to target creature and X damage to you, where X is the number of goblins in play. So, I mean, you're hurting yourself quite a bit with it there, potentially. Rise of the Ants, 4 and 2 green for a sorcery with create 2 3/3 green insect creature tokens and you gain 2 life, and has flashback 6 and 2 green. Again, a little bit too expensive for my taste there. Oh, River Bear, so a little bit more expensive bear there. 3 and a green instead of 1 and a green for a 3/3 with 3/3 bear with island walk there. If depending player has an island, it can't be blocked. Okay. Ooh. Cryptic Spires. I don't think I've seen this one there before. Cryptic Spires land. As you create your deck, circle 2 of the colors below. This enters the battlefield tapped. Tap this, add 1 mana of either of the circled colors. So it's basically just an extra card that I guess you could put in your deck that says, yeah, I want it to be these 2, but you have to say what it is ahead of time there. Not sure how much that would work in more constructed play there. Who knows? Ambush Commander from the good old Goblins versus Elves deck. 3 and 2 green for a 2/2 elf with forest you control are 1/1 green elf creatures that are still lands. Again, it's like, yeah, that's nice, but if someone board wipes all your creatures, all your lands go as well. 1 and a green for sacrificing an elf and target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn there. It's fine, but it's very, very risky and it costs a whole lot there. I'm going to pass on playing it. Stony Silence, okay, that's a decent one there as well. 1 and a white for enchantment with activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. So, and yeah, it's just like they want to tap that artifact for mana. I can't do that anymore. Sorry. You know, they want to be able to use that to be able to use an effect. Oh, sorry. You know, they can't do that. Good card there. Ooh, and an Underworld Breach. Another good card that, if I remember correctly, I think got recently banned. 1 and a red for an enchantment with each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. Escape cost is equal to that card's mana cost, plus exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard. And at the beginning of your end step, you'll sacrifice Underworld Breach. So you're getting a lot of stuff out there for free. Could potentially build up a lot of storm count on it as well, and bringing back a lot of good creatures there. There's a lot of good ways to use Underworld Breach. And we also have Yawgmoth's Day Planner, 3 and a black for an artifact with tap this and pay 2 life to add 2 black mana. You may cast spells from your graveyard. Only mana produced by abilities that caused you to lose life may be spent to cast them. If a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Yeah, it's a nifty little card that lets you play stuff from your graveyard there. You got to be able to pay life for it, though. So, you know, it's certainly an interesting one. It might be beyond my thought process to be able to use it there, but it's an interesting one, but who knows. Alrighty, last one there. Hoping for one last nifty thing. It'd be nice to get one more foil card as well. Clarion Spirit, 1 and a white for a 2/2 spirit with whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Sounds a little bit like Flurry, don't you think? Maybe this was just the beginning of it. Imposter of the Sixth Pride, 1 and a white for a 3/1 shapeshifter changeling. It's every creature type. Eldrazi Sky Spawner, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 Eldrazi drone with Devoid. Has no color, actually. It's a flyer with, when it ETBs, you put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield with sacrifice this creature to add 1 colorless to your mana pool. Gudul Lurker, 1 blue for a 1/1 Salamander that can't be blocked, and it has Megamorph for 1 blue. Okay, you know, just a little guy there that wants to swing in and hit for damage. Reign of Filth, 1 black mana for an instant with each land you control gains sacrifice this land to add 1 black to your mana pool until end of turn. You know, who knows? Maybe it's a way for you to get a little bit of extra damage in there to try to kill someone off with something like Rain of Hailfire or something like that there. Vindictive Vampire, 3 and a black for a 2/3 vampire. When another creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain life. Okay. Good old Reckless Charge again there. You saw that. Gives something +3/+0 and haste, and it has flashback. Okay. Goblin Crater Maker, 1 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior with 1. Sacrifice this to choose 1. It either deals 2 damage to target creature or destroy target colorless non-land permanent there. It's fine there. I mean, it's good to get rid of Eldrazi's. That's for sure. Briar Patch, 1 and 2 green for an enchantment with whenever a creature attacks you, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn there. Yeah. Venom Spout Brachus, 6 and a green for a 5/5 beast with 1 and a green, and tap it to have this deal 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature with flying. And its morph cost is 3 and 2 green. Okay, it's a card. And we also have Savage Lands there. The taps for black, red, or green. The Jund land that enters the battlefield tapped. Okay. And we're going to get a bit of Liesa, Shroud of Dusk. 2 and 2 white and a black for a 5/5 legendary angel. And you can, rather than pay 2 colorless for each previous time you've cast this spell from the command zone this game, you may instead pay 2 life that many times instead. It has flying and lifelink, and whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. So, it's a ticking time bomb for your opponents there if they don't take care of it. Oh, and we got the good old Colossal Dreadmaw in white border there. That good old 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 Dinosaur Trampler. Honestly, what more could you possibly want in a card, huh? Really, what could you possibly want? And unfortunately, no second foil there, but we are going to get a Gush. 4 and a blue for an instant with, you may return 2 islands you control to their owner's hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost to draw 2 cards instead. So, hey, free 2 cards, not too shabby. And our last thing is going to be a Flavor Disaster. 4 and a green for a 4/3 enchantment elemental pirate with reach, and when it ETBs, or when it turns face up, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power. And it has Negamorph for 1 and a green, so it'll get a -1/-1 counter on it if you turn it face up, I imagine, because it's the opposite of Megamorph. So you're getting it out there sooner. Okay, yeah. Alrighty, so that was all of those ones that were there. Now, like we said, we had all of these ones that we had there. Now, the one thing that I will be doing is opening this one on up, this Animar and Friends, because, most importantly, what we want to be able to do is tell if we get a 7 dwarves every time that we open this up, or if it was just completely random and we got some good luck there. So let's take a peek and see if we had gotten lucky at all. So I have already added up the normal cards in here from these and these, so you won't see the counter tick up there. But, Mole Drifter, OLB1, Benevolent Hydra, Forgotten Ancient, Animar, and for the bonus card there, it's a Diregraph Colossus. So we did end up getting that 7 dwarves as a lucky card. So that is absolutely fulfilling to see there. So again, we got all of those as well as the bonus cards in there. We got some nice stuff. We got a lot more mythics here, but we'll see how that might balance things out, because ultimately I imagine that this is going to be, comparatively to the other one, not as the value within isn't as great, because specifically we didn't get that 7 dwarves in it. That was a lucky card there. So hey, I'm really happy to have gotten that 7 dwarves the past time. I'm glad to get these. I wish that this was a foil of a different one there, but hey, still getting foils there of some of these and getting some interesting cards, seeing some that I haven't seen before because they're from older sets, or getting some repeats or just cards that I never ended up getting. That's pretty nice. I absolutely love these mystery boosters, and I'm looking forward to getting some more into in the future there. So thanks for joining me on this mystery booster adventure, seeing what random stuff we could come up here, and I hope that you'll join me in another time there. But until then, please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later.